Welcome, horror fan, to HHN 365, a Halloween Horror Nights podcast. My name is Duff, and as always, I'm here with my co-host Jess and Jonathan. It's over, and it's been over for a little bit. We're late.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'm okay with it.
I think we're all surprisingly kind of okay with the season disappearing.
I think many of us were okay with it, like,
Yeah,
that last week, we're not like, "Alright, it's time."
yeah. Not to give anything away before the review. I think that probably sounds a little bit more negative than we'll be. Not saying we'll be super positive, but like I wasn't celebrating its death. But usually it's a little bit more bittersweet than it was. So.
Mhm.
That's just a
Speak for
hint.
yourself, Duff.
Just a hint. Yeah, fair. All right. Follow us on social media. That's Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky. I forgot about that. YouTube, TikTok at HHN365. TikTok, I'm sorry, is HHN365 Pod. Our Discord, there's a link in the description. If you want to talk HHN year round, that's the spot. We're still doing it. Check out our merch at HHN365.com. And if you want to join the show, leave us a voicemail at 407 906 4134. And on today's show, you know what we're doing. We are reviewing in full HHN 33. So this will be our Orlando specific episode. We're going to have our West Coast wrap up coming up in the next week or two here. But this is specifically HHN 33, beginning to end, how we feel now that it is over. And we're going to go through everything. And I think that's basically all we're talking about today, isn't it? So we could hop right into this. So we're going to start with our vibe, the entire event vibe. So we're going to go over the loop, the theme, the icons we had, the merch. And I'll if one of you guys want to kick us off, we're going to start with that theme and loop of the event.
This is interesting, because we like to say theme as it's just one theme that occurred throughout the year, because usually that's how it is. We usually have one particular theme. I think this year, the theme was kind of all over the place. There was, the theme of the, sort of duality. There was almost like the punk sort of like vibe on all the merch. The music was felt different from the icons. There was, I just feel like, a lot of conflicting themes about what this year exactly wanted to be, and I don't think I ever pinpointed like something that I can go back in the future and be like, yeah, that was HHN 33 in terms of like its theme, and I don't know if it's the same for you guys.
No, it's exactly the same. Where Um, I think that kind of gives me a definitive answer almost, but there were two distinct themes happening. And it's one thing if it's solely splitting like a merch and event, but it wasn't. Like that punk theme went beyond merch. And it kind of, I don't want to say like it's necessarily bad if that happens, but you need to find a way to make them feel like they can cohabitate the event. And it felt like there was no effort to do that, and they were just two completely conflicting things.
I'm just gonna echo everything you guys said. I didn't dislike either of the themes, like, but then when you go out to like the West Coast, which we'll get to in our next episode, they incorporated it better because that was their theme.
Hmm.
So then to come back home, it was even kind of like more apparent of how shoehorned in kind of everything else was for the marketing aspect and how we
Yeah.
had these two icons that were just kind of just in Orlando. And that's fine. But then why are we centering around them here? We could have just done chainsaw punks at the front of our entrance too, and not had these icons, which that kind of takes away from them, in my opinion. And I loved Sinister and Surreal. So, eh. And the
Uh,
music is like forgettable for me this year. I don't know why. Maybe I just didn't spend enough time.
mhm. I was gonna say I forgot to mention the music. I think to be fair, the loop was fine. I didn't have an issue with the loop. It didn't stand out, but there's been a few years where like I've not been a huge fan of the loop, and it's annoyed me at times. This one was just fine. I thought it fit well enough for just being an HHN park wide loop, and not super memorable, but it didn't have any negative effect for me. It just kind of went into the things aren't really matching here with the multiple themes going on. But it's not the fault of the loop.
Yeah, there was no another way out this year.
Hmm.
Just
I
rotting.
I will say I actually listened back to our 32 review episode, just sort of preparing the outline to remember how, we sort of structured things. And we talked about the loop there. And we were like, yeah, a lot of the music is sort of in one ear, out the other ear, which probably was the intention. But there were a couple of key songs that
Hmm.
you went like, yeah, this is HHN 32 that you can hear now. I think even one of those songs was played like in one of the commercials for like one of the Peacock shows.
Yes, it was for the
Like,
scare tactics, I believe.
yeah,
Oh.
Yeah.
whenever
Hmm.
I heard that, I'm like, "Ooh, HHN 32!" Like,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't all the projections.
It was that song that like really was associated with Oddfellow, right? Or
Oh,
Mhm.
him,
what?
like,
Like one of the
tiptoeing
two.
around
Yeah.
hi
Yeah. That one.
okay, his
Hmm.
little tiptoe song.
He kind of had like two songs that are really associated with him. It's one of those two.
Oh, I didn't realize.
It was crazy, and it shows you the power of a couple of good songs in a loop where you're like, "That's HHN 32," you know? Um, I don't think this year had any song. Like, I cannot pinpoint for me one song or two or whatever that will remind me of HHN 33 in future years. And while I'm happy that this isn't like hurting our ears or anything walking to the park, I appreciate that. I also think we kind of went too safe where there's no music that I'm gonna remember from this year.
Yeah, I think when I hear the songs, if I ever do, I will pinpoint them as an HHN 33 song, but they're not things I'm just gonna like. Sometimes you think of an event and one of the songs or some of the songs will pop in your head. I don't really think that's gonna happen. The only one that even now, what the event ended basically 2 weeks ago, there's only one I can even like go back and like just pull out like at will. And I'm not gonna try to like sing it because it's just instrumental. And it's actually like it's a very subdued. It's like usually the songs that stick out are kind of more heavy and not necessarily heavy and like it gets louder, but like heavy and like there's a lot going on, and it's a song that just generally would stand out, right? And the one that for this event for me isn't like that at all. It's more a little just kind of calm. It just has a like a specific riff that sticks out more than anything.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, it's again, I don't find that an issue as long as the music uh, is not a hindrance to the event. I think it's fine. It fit. It did its job. It was fine. It's definitely not a great all-time loop. That's for sure.
Absolutely. No, I completely agree with that. But I know we did mention previously, we sort of glanced over them, the icons for this year.
Hmm.
For our first year, having two new icons in the same year, Sinister and Surreal. How do we feel about them? Were they good icons? Like, how do we feel about their incorporation into this year's event?
Um, so I like them as characters. So I guess I technically like them as icons. I didn't necessarily love their utilization, and a lot of that comes down to what we just discussed in the conflicting themes. There was always something stopping it from making it feel like it was their event. Like I thought, if we want to talk about Sinister, if you go in a torture fair, the usage phenomenal, worked great in that single zone where it was Sinister's zone. Demon Queens, obviously, when you got the moments with Surreal, that was the best part of the zone by far. Um, Beyond that, though, where were they truly icons? And I'm not trying to argue they weren't icons. They were definitely icons. But where did they make it feel like they were truly icons beyond that? Because I didn't feel it. I wanted them to. I think they're very unique, fun characters. I think the concept's a lot of fun. Kind of delving into what fear is and the different aspects of it itself. But they didn't really let them fully have this event. And that's
Mhm.
what's frustrating about it because I do like them. And I think they'd be a lot of fun to see later on down the road. And I think especially icons like this would be great in kind of a like an anniversary year. We're going to see a mashup of icons. I think they could stand out and do their own thing really well. And I'm hoping we get that because I felt very let down by how they were used for HHN 33.
Yeah. No, I agree 100%, and I think that that's a great point what you just said about in anniversary years, they're gonna stand out because I think that seeing them up there with, like, Fear, as kind of not his minions, but, like, alongside of them, maybe against, like, Jack and Chance would be really interesting.
Hmm.
But, like, right now, they were just kind of there, and for me, they both kind of fizzled out in their zones because there was no repeatability. Like, for Sinister, it was the same thing, it was the tongue cutting, it was, with the executioner, it was over and over again. I felt like, Surreal maybe was a little bit more interesting because those scare actors were working their asses off when
Hmm.
she was doing her little, like, spiel. I but, like, besides that, I I wanted to love them a lot more. I think that they were fun, I think it was interesting. I like that we're not just getting, like, really basic horror tropes anymore, like a clown, like a ringmaster, like a doll, stuff like that. This is really, like, cerebral. I just think it was like a swing and a miss right now. But the next time we see them, I think that it'll be more nostalgic for all of us, and we'll be like, "Oh my god, look how fun."
Hmm.
No, I completely agree, and it's unfortunate for them that we just came off the Oddfellow year, in 32, where we talked about how amazing Oddfellow was implemented into everything. All the zones, having his own house, having his voice be or whistle be in the park loop, in the park loop and in City Walk walking through. Like Oddfellow was really incorporated into almost every single thing in that event besides, some houses and whatnot. Um, so this year seeing how Sinister and Surreal implemented they're not on the same level at all, and that hurts them. I think they're great characters, and I think they're going to be really good in the future. I love almost the Cenobite vibe they give off, especially
Hmm.
Sinister with the sort of like the pulled off skin and stuff like that. Like it's really cool. I just want to see more with them, and I think maybe if all the zones were themed to them in some way, or it was truly half and half, maybe that could have helped, possibly, instead of just giving them one zone. But I don't know. It's for this year, they're fine. I think in the future they will shine a lot brighter.
Hmm. I think it's strangely enough they can almost be viewed as kind of like a an Eddie or a Cindy
Mm,
or what a Chance used to be. Like those were like they felt like icons in a way. Obviously, they didn't have their event, but people wanted so much more,
Mhm.
yeah.
and that's kind of sad because they were fully icons technically.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, it's strange to like say I like them, but I didn't like them as icons. I didn't like how they were used as icons. Is the best way to put it.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, I do hope we see them down the line, and we can all get kind of rectify their use is a good way to say it, I guess. I'd love to see that.
So
Do we?
question then. Oh, sorry,
Yeah. No, go
Jonathan.
for it. Go for it.
It can be very quick. We're talking about anniversary years. We have one coming up technically in 2 years. Would you
Hmm.
guys be happy or kinda disappointed to see them pop up in 35?
I think 35 might not be necessary, but I wouldn't be upset to see them. It's just kind of so soon
Mhm.
that I'm not going to like feel the need to see that recent of an icon. But if it's an all out icon year, then whatever. So be it. That's fine. I won't complain.
Yeah, I have the same thought process. I kind of want 35 to be focused on Oddfellow again, which, in my opinion, I don't know what they're thinking yet because we still have a lot more years to go. Is like this new era's Jack. Obviously, Jack is always going to be Jack, but if we're talking about the new era of icons that we've been getting, I think Oddfellow is the ringmaster, the leader, the one that will like be leading over all of them in marketing and everything if they ever come back, which I'm sure they will. So I'd love 35 to be focused on him with maybe Jack and maybe, having some cool little thing there. And then 40 is like, all right, all these new icons we created for this particular era. This is like their anniversary. And we sort of have a 30 years, 30 fears thing, but with like these new icons plus some of the returning ones. I think that'd be really cool.
Hmm. That'd be
Okay.
fun. I'd like that.
Yeah.
But I was gonna say, uh, like, do we think these icons were somewhat last minute? Not like, out of the blue, like we gotta think of something, but like man, something didn't pan out, something didn't work. So, either like they themselves were last minute in the general design of things, or whatever was planned for them got like something happened, and then that's why they feel off, because we know they can do a great icon year with Oddfellow. They just did it in 32. They're very aware of how to do it. It feels like something somewhere stopped them from being able to, because they know how to do this. So I think something happened.
Hmm. I think that's something that people have definitely jumped to, right? Like they must have been last minute or late additions. I think there's maybe a chance also is just a struggle we've seen before, which is between marketing and A&D. And like sometimes marketing has something specific in mind that doesn't necessarily match A&D or vice versa, if you want. And unfortunately, both of those have a huge influence on what the theme and look of the event is.
Hmm.
So it could just be a case of that, really. That doesn't excuse Duality of Fear,
No.
obviously. But Duality of Fear, even not to give it away, I'm sure you know what we think about it because we've thought the same thing the entire season. Um, it's just a zone. You can get past that. You can flop one zone and still make it work. But there was a lot more to it. So I think maybe there was some sort of just internal struggle of making things cohesive.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Uh, but moving on to something that was also not cohesive, but we're gonna get to it. Merch, and the tribute store. I guess we'll just talk about the tribute store itself before we dive into what was actually inside of the tribute store for merch. How do we feel about the store this year?
I did not like it. I'm sorry. I thought that they like unintentionally, intentionally made it a clusterfuck, logistical nightmare.
Hmm.
That space is not small by any means. And why the fuck did it feel so small?
They did make it very tight this year, it felt.
Uncomfortable. Like you could not get around. Everything was like there was no flow. Uh, and that's not taking away from like what the design team did. It was amazing what it looked like. But I went in there once. I went in there for preview and I went in there on closing night during Stay and Scream.
Hmm.
And I did not go back in because holy shit, it was hard to get through.
So I think my thing with the tribute store this year was as an individual, like immersive store experience, I think it was very good. I
Mhm.
think you followed a story. It kind of tied into a fun little Easter egg of HHN past. I thought they built some beautiful rooms on their own. Um, However, I do think while it's a very immersive store, there wasn't much focus on the tribute aspect, which is kind of important. Like, I'm happy we've moved past what the tribute store was in 25, 26. Those first years where it was literally just a tribute to HHN and nothing else. It wasn't immersive. It was just HHN in your face. However, I think we've moved too far beyond it being a tribute to HHN. I think when you think of like 29, 30, 31 even, like it really felt like it was representing the event in some way. This just felt like a separate experience that happened to be a store that was built around a very small Easter egg of HHN, and that was it.
Yeah, that was very interesting to me that Batilda was the focus of the store. Uh like, I'm not against that. It was just a weird choice considering Batilda was not involved in this year at all.
Hmm.
Not a single thing. Not his own. Batilda was not in this year. It was just a reference to last year, plus, other years
Yeah,
that character
Matilda
has been
was a screamer.
featured.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
That's how they justified that choice.
um, but I see. I don't think the issue is that it was centered around Batilda. But if you're going to do that, put more HHN lore into it, and
Hmm.
not just Batilda.
Yeah. No, that would have been a good choice too. I do also agree with Jess about the congestion of the store, how tight and cramped it felt, especially that first room. I don't know why you would, like, have the store designed in a way where the first room you go in is the tightest one where no one wants to walk in. Because what happens is you walk into the entrance or whatever, you see that first room, you see how many people are cramped into there getting all the Ghostbuster stuff, you turn around and you leave. You don't go back in. Like, I'm very sure that definitely discouraged a lot of guests from shopping in that store, because it was way too crowded. And it honestly wasn't even that crowded when you went further in. Like, once you get past that room, it's like, okay, it got a little bit better, it got a bit little wider. But people are only going to see that first room and they're going to be like, nope, out of here. And they leave. So that was just a very interesting choice. It was immersive. It just, as a flow of a store, was not fun. I still enjoyed it. It had a nice theme, felt very Descendants of Destruction themed very well. Lots of, fun things to look at. It had the Slaughter Cinema like snack bar sign that we did not get in the house, but it was there. So I was like, oh,
Mhm.
that's cool. Just yeah, as a flow of a store, not the best. That's really all I have to say on it.
So a lot of people, like we are not alone in this opinion that it's not our favorite tribute store. But a lot of people are like, this is the worst. So I'm curious what you guys think, because for me, it's very tough to say what is the worst because we've had such different eras of what a tribute store is. As I mentioned earlier, like they used to just be a shop with some HHN shit, and that was it. And now we are
Yeah.
accustomed to these huge immersive experiences. Um, would you say, even though that it is one of the higher end ones in like level of immersiveness and build out, that it could still potentially be the worst one you've seen?
No, because I did see the 25 one in the Twister store.
Mhm.
I didn't go to the event, but I saw it as a daytime guest. And, even though that had, like, a tribute aspect to it, that was just a daytime gift shop
Yeah,
that was rethemed.
which I'd argue 26 was basically the same, in a better space for it, but
Right.
basically the same, and a little bit more going on. I think
Right.
so, like, let's compare it to, like, 27, where they kind of started to really lean into what modern day tribute store is. Obviously a much lower scale, smaller scale, but they were started to get into it. Would you be able to say that it was better than that still?
I Yes, because it was cohesive and it was, like, fully immersive. Whereas and if you're wondering how we feel about all these tribute stores, we do actually have a ranking episode from this year,
Mhm.
just to plug that in. I don't Duff, were you on that one?
I was not on that episode.
Okay, I'm like, I feel like you were not, but the 3 of us, we did do that, so you can go check that out. Um, but I I I do feel like this one's better because it's fully cohesive. You kind of it's that full immersion where, like, the 27 one was we're dipping our toe in
Mhm,
for 28, and then 29 is, like, the big one where the Ghostbusters one,
mhm.
in my opinion.
For
So
me,
oh, go ahead, Jonathan, sorry.
no, for me, it's kind of like a coin toss between this and 30s. I didn't love either one. I think I this one might be better just based on it's more immersive, and I think the story is at least a bit more interesting than the one told in 30 when we found out, like, what the whole thing was leading up to. I'm like, "Ah, alright, I guess." So I guess this one beats 30, but not by a lot. So I think that's where I would probably rank it.
Gotcha. So not as much for you, Jonathan. Also, you start going in 28, where we had kind of almost fully transitioned to at least sort of what we expect of a modern day tribute store.
Yeah.
We were
Y
pretty close to that scale at that point. Um,
yeah, I like
s-
28s, that was a
so
good store.
I would say rather it sounds like than this just being like, oh, this is a bad tribute store. It's a more it didn't meet the expectations we have at this point.
Yeah.
I think so,
Mhm.
especially after last year's. Last year's was incredible. I
Yep.
mean, I still think about that one. The comic book vibe, that was so good, and it had HHN lore in it in a fun way.
Yep.
So I really
Absolutely.
enjoyed that one.
Absolutely. So let's move on to another kind of limited store experience we had that also came with some food as well. And that'd be Major Sweets Candy Company, which took over the candy store in San Francisco. Oh, sorry. We also want to talk about merch, don't we?
Yeah, I might have been highlighting that on the outline.
Well, let's talk about
Do
this
we
first.
have to?
Let's do store over store, then we'll talk about merch.
All right,
We can
sounds
all
good.
tie it back because this one's pretty quick. I mean, it was a pretty light overlay overall. I thought, though, it is a very cool thing they tried, and I guess for what they did, it worked. It's not like it failed. It was fine. But I'll always take additional theming where it would not have previously been.
I loved it. I thought it was done very tastefully in the space. It wasn't something you go out to do, obviously. But there were some pieces of merch from this year. We're not really in merch yet, but like for example, the major sweets like chocolate bar that I'd only want to get from this store. Like I'd only grab it from here because like it's just part of the theme. I love when you can theme a place up to something revolving HHN. I kind of wish they pumped music in here from the scare zone. I think that would have helped a
Mm,
little bit, but I mean, it's something they did not need to do. Probably did not really increase sales that much. Yet I'm happy they did it. I was very happy about the retheme.
Yeah, I went in there a couple times. It was cute, but to me, it was immersive, but it was also just a place to hide from the rain. Every time I got stuck in the rain in San Francisco, I would just wait in there, and then I would realize that there's no music playing, and it was just kind of like some vinyls put up. And why was the freeze dried candy so much money? Can somebody explain that to me, please?
no, I cannot.
It was like $15 or something like that. Like
Could not explain.
it was cute. And I'm not a major sweets hater. I don't want this to sound like that's what I'm saying. But it did start to leave a really bad taste in my mouth looking back when like it got put away what like a week early or something.
Yeah.
Like what? There are people who wait until the like closing week to come to the event for the first and only time. And they're paying the same amount everybody else did.
And what's even the point? You had to take down some fucking vinyls. You could do that
Yeah,
the night the event ends. It's not a big deal.
that part.
Um, but for
Mhm.
basically, I'm with Jonathan in the point that it literally is just something that didn't need to be there, but was, and it didn't take anything away from the event. Just added a little bit.
Mhm.
I'll take it. I mean, I don't think it was the most impressive thing in the world, obviously, but I'll always take small little experiences like that if they're willing to add them in.
Yeah.
I hope it at least increased a little bit of the sales for the major sweets related items in particular. Because maybe in the future, if there's a house or a zone that like be like, hey, we can retheme the candy code of this character, this theme pretty easily, and be like, okay, imagine actually tying it in with the zone, like the San Francisco zone there. Like that'd be perfect if they both like magically fit together. Like I kind of hope that it would this year because Major Sweets is literally in Fast and Furious, like right over there. But whatever.
It should have been like we'll get into this, I guess, or we'll just get into this now really fast. But that zone should have been like them staging or decorating one of the floats for the parade. Like
Oh
Mm,
it
my
should
god,
have
yeah.
been
mhm.
a not direct like the in between the house and the zone, and just take the skins of one of the floats. I guess they can't anymore because
Yeah.
they're at some
Sold
other
those.
haunt.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? Make something that generally looks like one of the shapes of it, and boom. That's what it should have been, and it should have tied into the store there, and it would have been great. But that's not what we got.
Hmm. Yeah,
Mhm.
that was again. We'll get into that more later, I guess. But yeah, I think if we could have had more major suites to tie, obviously, into the candy company directly to the exit of the house, that would have been fucking phenomenal.
Hopefully they take that advice next year if everything fits nicely
Well,
like
you
that,
would hope so,
which
but
yeah, we'll see.
IP money. Uh,
Blumhouse.
but let's go back and talk about the merch overall. Um, I will tell you right now, I did not spend as much money as I typically do.
Nope.
Yeah, I I only got a couple of items. Like I
Hmm.
knew exactly what items I wanted from mostly day one. Like nothing won me over later besides an addition of a shirt that wasn't there before. Um I had like I think 3 or 4 shirts. I'm like I'm getting those and that was about it until things went 70% off and then I'm like I'll just get this cuz why not? But yeah.
Yeah, I basically added a few random things at 70% because it's stuff like it was. I bought a couple mugs. They cost like I also had an additional discount on top of that from
Mhm.
a friendly team member. um, so like it was literally like 250 or something per mug. So like small things like that I added on later in the event, like a poster and stuff like that. But stuff that I actually was like, I'm gonna buy this at full price or with my AP discount was literally what did I know I bought one thing at full price. I don't even remember what it was now, but it was something, at least one thing. But I literally waited to buy like any other piece of merch until it was 70% off.
Well, I mean, you both you both know. I usually buy at least a couple shirts, at least a couple things. I only bought the badge holder
Wow.
this year, and I use it at work. That's it. That's all I bought this year.
It's the only thing.
Only thing.
To be fair,
Crazy.
I did like it. It looks cool. It works.
Yeah,
That design works really well on that.
I really like it. My kids really like it
Mm.
at school. They're always like, "What's that?" I'm like, "It's a skull, you know." Okay.
Don't worry about it. It's all right. It's
Hey,
fine.
it's fine. But yeah, that's literally all I purchased. Even out in California, I did not buy anything out there.
Wow. Yeah.
Just not for me this year. And this year, I just we'll get into that. I didn't need to remember a lot of it.
Well, I don't think it's only you
I
or
know.
us because they put stuff 70% off. Was it Thursday or Friday before the closing of the event?
No,
It
I
was
thought it was like Tuesday or Wednesday. It
Was
was
it that early? I
not even
think they did
an event
70
night. I
yeah,
thought.
it was a day before I came that last week, so I think it was the Wednesday that
Wednesday.
they all went 70% off.
Yeah,
Crazy. Crazy.
that's like old times right there.
Oh, no, they would never do that. Not
Really,
70.
I remember
No.
70 like closing week.
No,
Maybe it was for
70% I was the night before closing at
oh,
earliest. At
I'm
earliest. And typically it was only the final night.
I'm thinking of Light when everything went on sale that last like week.
Yeah. Yeah. No, yeah, they've the earliest they've done for the 70% was like the night or the second to last night of the event.
Crazy.
So now this was an entire last week, not weekend, week at 70% off. And basically anything you wanted until I'd say the final night things started to really disappear was pretty much available.
It's
Yep.
kind of crazy.
Yeah, stuff really didn't start to disappear till the final night of the event. And then the tribute store was finally barren that day and but like there already been 70% off for 4 days. Why did it take that long?
And there
Well,
was
you could
still a ton of merch at the garage sale that just like happened yesterday. Like
Hmm.
I've seen people with like tons of shirts and
Yep.
badges and Eternal Bloodlines merch and just like tons and tons of stuff that was there. So they didn't clear out everything either those last couple
No,
days.
no, I'm sure they held some back for the garage sales, to be honest, because I think they're a bit less discounted, aren't they?
I think
I've
they're
never been.
more
Or is it more?
because it's
I've never been.
70% off. I think the discounted price. I think
Oh, but
I don't know. I know
I don't
they're
think
very cheap.
I don't think they're offering them at the 70% discount plus the 70% at the garage sale.
Probably not.
Anyways, yeah. So merch was not moving well throughout basically the entire season. Um, I will say a couple things I did appreciate, even if I didn't buy it, that there was a few more house specific items. Like they expanded from just a shirt or a glass to like now there's a hat and a bag and
Yeah.
another hat. Like I think that's cool that they did that. The quality of it, on the other hand, they did the super cheap hat print on a Velcro hat. No thank you. Super cheap print on the bags and basically everything. Like the shirts were normal, the glasses were normal. Everything else that they like added on, they kind of cheaped out on it.
Yep. That's how you get variety though with these theme parks is that they do it the cheap way or they do it in the back with a heat press.
Yeah.
So those are our options. I do agree though the variety this year it makes me excited. Well, one for what we're gonna see at Epic because maybe they're testing some bulk items or different because we've never really gotten like shoulder bags or side bags like that.
No.
We got multiple ones. We had like an Insidious one and an event one.
Hmm.
Like we were just they were trying new things this year, which I can always appreciate even if most of them were misses, in my opinion. So like I don't want to just sound like we're making fun of the
No,
merchandising
no,
team.
I like that they tried it.
Yeah.
I like that they tried it and expanded the offerings in that way. However, I think huge miss that we should talk about is Slaughter Cinema.
Yeah.
Yep.
You knew you were bringing back one of the most recent iconic houses that you sold individual merch for through Horror Inc. rather than just directly in the shops, but like that people ate the fuck up. And not only did you not like make the movie posters or something like that available, you sold nothing. Zero. There's nothing Slaughter Cinema.
No, like literally the only references are the name on the house shirt
Yeah.
and the one character from like the last movie on the original shirt.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
even then, if you didn't like honestly, if you went to that house once, you might see that character and be like, "Who is that?" It's not even that clear. So it's definitely a miss. I'm kind of shocked why we didn't really have anything Slaughter Cinema.
But I mean, Slaughter Cinema's not even alone there. Where was the originals merch at all?
Yep. You got the one shirt.
You got Sweets with his big face.
Oh
Fuck
yeah,
that
you did
shirt.
get a sweets line. You
Oh
did get
my
a sweets line.
god.
That's right.
Why is the artist series like regressing every year? We got like I know I bitched about the bride print back in the day, like roll the tape, but like that's the best one we ever got. Was the
Yeah,
one where it was all Frankenstein
it really
featured.
was. It really was. It looked the best, that's for sure.
I don't know why they did that like three-way pie thing. Like it's such a disservice to the artist. I'm sorry.
No, yeah, I haven't liked the artists like that sort of style shirt, like the artist signature series in a while. I don't think I've grabbed any of them, and this one was no different. I would have got a Major Sweet shirt so easily. Like even if it was just like the icon, like just him winking, that little
Mhm.
like animated thing. I'd be like, oh, sure, I'll get that, or
Hmm.
whatever. But no, they made like it was that, and I get it. It's an interesting style and it's cool. Like it's good art. It's just not something I'd want to wear on a shirt in front of other people.
I
So
mean, the best sweets merch was the candy they sold because
Yeah.
it had like that animated logo of sweets on it.
No, the headband. That was the best thing they sold.
The
The ugliest.
headband.
Wasn't it a headband? There were it had like little Boo on it and his little hat. I swear I saw them in the beginning of
oh
the
yeah, it
run.
had like yeah, one side was Little Boo and the other was like Major Sweet's hat. I think.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Like don't
Yeah.
gaslight me, I
Okay.
promise.
No, I didn't. I didn't remember it.
No, I would have, I would have preferred, like, this is how bad the merch was. I would have preferred his and her shirts that says, I'm his treats, I'm his sweets. Like, that's what I would have preferred over that ugly ass fucking pie shirt that we got.
You can buy those on hhn365.com in about a month. Don't take my word for that, please.
No, please.
But
Um.
I agree
Oh,
with
go
the
ahead.
candy though. Like that was cool. We've always wanted when the zone came out, we always wanted to buy sweets candy and they gave
Hmm.
us some options.
Yeah.
I got that candy bar and like just for the wrapper really. Like it was good. It was like a bourbon chocolate. Like that was fun. But I literally only got that item for the wrapper and I still have it like hanging. Like that's good. That's immersive. I love that.
Actually, I bought another piece of merch because I have the same thing. I have the wrapper. Just I don't have it displayed at all yet, but I have it chilling, waiting to be displayed. It's a memento.
Yeah.
So it sounds like overall we're not too pleased with the merch selection this year. Anything else to add before we move on, though?
Do we I know we've been pretty negative on the merch. But like last year, do we all have like one favorite piece of merch or we're like this was good. This was what we really liked this year.
Um, okay, I have it. Okay, it's a piece of merch that I wanted to buy, but I didn't because I just didn't. But I like that they gave us a cropped fitted house shirt this year.
Mm.
Like, I don't wanna
Hmm.
call it a feminine cut, but it was still, like, an oversized t-shirt, but it had shorter sleeves, and it was cropped, and they
Hmm.
had it on both coasts. Just giving us variety in something that's, like, a basic house shirt. Thank you. We
Hmm.
need more of that.
Um, I, I don't have a specific item that I liked a lot, and even though I really didn't buy any of what I'm about to say, I do think the designs were good. I did like a lot of the punk stuff and how it worked with not every piece, but there's a lot of pieces where it worked.
Mhm.
I think, and then also the Insidious and Ghostbusters lines looked really good.
Mhm. I'm gonna have to piggyback off the Ghostbusters line, in particular that shirt that only released like halfway throughout the event, where it was like a black shirt. I'm like, oh, good, I can wear this, and it's not like the purple and green ones. Like it's just a normal HHN, black shirt with it on the back. On the front, it has like the Ghostbusters logo. I love that shirt. I wear that a lot. And my other honorable mention is the original shirt. I really liked the way that one looked. That was the first shirt I bought this year. And I wore that a lot of the night. So it's really, I switched between those two shirts sort of constantly. Those were like my two HN33 shirts.
Hmm. All right. Well, shall we move on to stuff that I think is a bit more fun and there's a bit more for us to like? Where we're going to be talking about the food, the beverage, and the specialty slash themed bars throughout the event. So let's kick that off with food. I think that's a good starting point. Any items just immediately come to mind that you want to discuss?
The fish and chips.
I did love the fish and
The
chips.
fish and chips were life changing this year at
I
the Monsters booth.
think I don't understand how they were maybe the best fish and chips that Universal has, which is
Yeah.
strange coming out of a temporary booth, but they really were. I would have preferred if they gave me some malt vinegar packets or something I could have used. I know it was in the aioli, but if I could have got some fucking malt vinegar on those chips and fish, would have kicked it up another notch.
I agree. It was in the aioli, but it was not enough for me either. But it was, I would argue that it's the best like theme park fish and chip I've had, like
Hmm.
over Disney or anything. And I'm really sad that I can't just go get it now.
Yeah, gone forever.
I'm really sad I waited till the last day to get them because I got them like near the end of the night and it was clear that like they're running out because I was like there's nothing here. There's like just fries and like little slivers of fish
Oh
and I'm like
no.
Oh,
Oh
I was so upset like oh I paid $17 for this. Hooray. They
yeah.
tasted the bites were good. Little bites of fish. They tasted good but yeah, no, I was upset by that purchase. I'm like, "Just don't sell them if you're gonna give me this, come on."
Yeah, it's pretty unfortunate because they were
Yeah.
always a pretty good portion size too.
Mhm.
Okay, one that sticks out to me. Maybe even if it wasn't the single best item, it was the most surprisingly good item, and that was the burger at Triplets booth. I never expected a tiny little patty coming out of a booth in a theme park to be a really good burger, but it was a really fucking good burger.
Hmm. I never had it.
It
Now
was
I'm sad.
it was pretty basic. I mean, the patty was nice, lettuce, tomato, but it had like a special like cheese, like kind of like cheese in the bun type deal. It was a
Mm.
griddled bun. It had, I think it was a Gouda, I want to say. Those melted over the burger perfectly. It was just like a really well done little burger, and it shocked me how much I enjoyed it. And I got it like 4 times, 5 times across the event because I'd be walking by, I'm like, you know what? What if I just grabbed one? Yeah, why not?
And it
So that's
was
kind of the
themed.
standout for me, and it was themed.
The little
Everything else
happy
at that
birthday.
booth was pretty not great, but uh, that burger was good.
I think I had that once in opening weekend, and I was like, "It's okay." I think it was just too much cheese for me. Like, it's a good
Mm,
burger. I just was not like prepared for. I mean, I was. It was called the cheeseburger, but I was not prepared for how much cheese I would have tasted in that burger, and I think I just got like scared of it. Never tried it again because I just didn't want to. I don't know. It was just like a shock. I do wish I tried it again though. It was good when I had it though.
mhm.
It was okay. Um, God, there was a lot of good items this year, but I like even more so than the items like itself. My favorite food, I'd even say experience this year was the Quiet Place booth. Um, 10 out of 10. That was fantastic. I did really like the corn chowder they had, and the chocolate was really good too. But the best part about it was the experience. You'd walk in and all the, people making your food and stuff would tell you, "Shh, and they'd all make the food quietly, and they'd look at you if you talked. It was a super immersive experience. Even the people who like handed out drinks, because they had like the drink section, they had the food section. The people who handed out drinks had like a little sign that they pointed to be like show ID. They wouldn't even talk, obviously unless you pressed them, but you didn't. They was like show ID, and it was such a cool immersive experience that only this property can give us with like food, and just everything about that elevated everything that I ate. I sometimes wanted to go there and get something even if I wasn't hungry, just to get that little experience. So
Hmm.
Quiet Place Boots you know gets a thumbs up. That was great.
I thought the food was really good, and I thought it was cool that they did that. I will say it's funny that the first time I went there, they did it all up with the experience, and then they handed us the wrong item, so we kind of had to break the moment.
Oh.
That's
So,
funny.
and they were talking back to us too. So I was like, oh, oops. Oh well, they tried. They tried. They tried, and then served us and provided good service. So very well done. Very well done.
I think if I remember my first time going through there, we were walking and I was with my brother and my whole group. And my brother, like he didn't know what they were trying to do yet. We didn't know. So like we just walked in and he just yelled like, "Shut up!" like as like a joke because it's quiet place. Then we walk up and they're actually being quiet and they all like started like laugh. They tried so hard not to laugh and break character. Like they were trying so hard looking at him. It was such a great moment. I'm
Amazing.
gonna miss
Amazing.
that booth.
I
Um.
never got to order from it.
Oh, really?
I ate like it would always be that someone in my party would have already gone when I got there. So I
Hmm.
would just kind of like mooch off their food
Fair.
and I never
Fair.
ordered it.
I will say, who would have thought fucking just a thing of potatoes and beans while it's 90 degrees out would be great? But it was.
That's a lot of people's like favorite item
It
this
was
year.
really
I've
good.
seen
It was really fucking good. And so we don't spend too much time on just food. I'm gonna fire off a few things that I did really enjoy. On top of that, I thought overall the Monstros booth was really good, but the pinchos really stood out. I loved the pinchos. Um, Cary Drive-In. I thought the hot dog was a little weird, but it tastes delicious. I think having that kind of like braised beef walking taco with the Doritos was a pretty nice upgrade. It was fucking
Hmm.
delicious and
Agreed.
filling.
The
Huge
rocks were
portion
really
this year.
good.
They were pretty good too. I did like those. Cary Drive-In just didn't have a miss, to be honest.
No, no, even the
Um,
drink was. I liked the dirty whatever the Shirley Black that was there.
I never went back to try it after my
That's so
first
funny.
experience.
I never had the experience you guys had.
Um, I will say one item that I will point out on the other spectrum, only because a lot of people are like, "This is the best value," and it was delicious. I think it was yeah, it must have been closing night that I tried the turkey wing. It was inedible,
Oh,
Oh,
inedible. The meat quality was so bad,
oh, that
I could
sucks.
not eat it.
Dang,
I
So
feel
that was
bad.
unfortunate. But like the sauce would taste good, so that was something. But yeah, it was like actually like a terrible food experience.
It was like
wow.
great when I had an opening weekend.
Yeah,
It might
that's
have just been like it's the last night and they're like, "All right, here's our
maybe,
final
maybe.
batches."
Most people were saying the same thing that it was great, but yeah, I had a bad experience. I waited till the end, just like you, Jonathan, with the fish and chips.
Yeah. We got to stop doing that.
Yeah,
That
clearly.
that part. I will say, as overhyped as I think the item was, that Stay Puft S'more, when you wanted a sweet treat and you just wanted something that you knew was gonna hit and you didn't want to risk it on a mint fucking corn dog.
Oh god.
Um,
Oh,
ugh.
Toothpaste.
Uh, with the discount, the Stay Puft S'more was like $5.90. So like I got like 6 of those
Yeah, it was a
motherfuckers.
pretty good size too.
Yeah, it was big enough. I would get one, go sit in the smoking section.
Mhm.
I had a great time after that.
The thing is, it's like nothing special, but like
No.
if you like a s'more, you're gonna fucking like it.
And
And
I fucking
easy.
love s'mores, so I had a great time.
Easy, easy.
I love a good little themed food item. You got
Yeah.
to cut off its head and be like, "Oh, I'm eating you."
It never looked like what it was supposed to look like. Come on. You never felt bad.
To be
Eh,
fair, the one I saw opening night looked really good. Like it looked like the Stay Puft perfectly.
Oh, mine were mm.
No,
I
that's
never
fair.
had one that really looked like it.
Hey, it
they
was a
were
s'more.
marshmallows.
It was a s'more. Who cares?
It was delicious. Can we talk about alcohol?
Shall we move on?
Oh, please. On
Let's
this
do it.
show?
Let's do it.
I this is gonna sound like a cop out, but that canned cocktail this year was really that bitch. The cursed cranberry,
It was
I
good.
loved it, and it got you a little fucked up.
It would literally just taste like a vodka cran and like a good vodka cran,
Yeah,
but it came in a fucking can.
yeah, and it was like 9 or 10%,
Yeah,
or maybe it was more than that. I can't remember, but
I don't
either way,
remember.
you could not keep them in the carts fast enough. They were gone by like 8 p.m. every day,
Hmm.
but they were worth it. And I'm really grateful for that, but I'm also grateful for the variety of alcohol we got again this year.
Yeah, definitely. While I don't think many of the specialty cocktails did much for me,
No.
you had your options. Whatever kind of liquor you're a fan of, they had a cocktail for you.
Yeah.
If you like Fanta mixers,
Oh,
you're in luck.
Oh,
well,
they had that.
well, I think the way we should do this, let's actually kind of mix. Let's talk about the bars, the specialty bars, and kind of the drinks that came with them. So let's just hop to the fucking Fanta bars real quick and talk about the drinks that they had. Uh, I gave it away already. I did not enjoy those, but I'm not a huge soda guy in the first place, so that would make sense. But like, not only did I not like them because they were like very soda based cocktails, they like the. I think I tried three of them from sips of other people. None of them even worked. Like they didn't even work as cocktails to me.
No, I am a soda person, and I hated all of them. They were gross. I think I tried most of them, if not all of them.
Hmm.
None of them were balanced. None of them were good. It was a corporate sponsorship that they had to shoehorn in.
Yeah, and I know. I
It
think the one a lot of people liked was the Surreal Spritz, right? I think that's
Yeah,
the one that people
I don't like
Surreal
Aperol.
soda, was it?
It's
I
Yeah, I
think.
think so.
Surreal Soda. I was
There was
Mm.
yeah,
also a Sinister Spritz, I think.
yeah. So I think it was the Surreal Soda that people liked a lot, right?
That was, I think, a cherry Coke with was that the Jack Daniel's cherry Coke?
Maybe.
Because that's the
Yeah.
one I had. That one was fine.
See, it didn't love it. Didn't love it.
It was whatever. But there was also a Fanta Aperol Spritz called the Sinister Spritz.
Also
Uh,
didn't like that. Didn't
I
try
don't
that
like
one.
Aperol, so I was never gonna like that.
Yeah, I know this the whole point of the Fanta tie-in was like to promote Fanta as a mixer and whatever. But it did the exact opposite for me. I never want to use Fanta as a mixer for alcohol because it just tastes like Fanta.
Hmm.
It's all you taste.
Flat
And then
Fanta.
whatever alcohol you have, they don't work together.
Yep.
Also,
Um,
all the bars had AI on it, and I hate it.
yeah, they looked. It looked bad in general. The cocktails that they had were bad, um, and not all of them had taps. So to make it even worse. So let's move on and talk about the HHN bar, which, from an experience perspective, I think is a really fucking cool addition. I think having the scare actors out and be able to interact with them in one place, and kind of have that photo op experience, but have it in its own space to be a photo op experience, it's really cool. Really cool concept.
Yeah, I loved it. I love the variety of characters and that sometimes it would change who you would get, but it was pretty consistent, and they had some different outfits from inside their houses too. So
Hmm.
I loved it, and the operations were great. Even if it was a long line, they were flying.
I felt bad for them half the time though, because I like there's so many times I'd walk by the HHN bar, which was really cool. I think I enjoyed that. I think it's a great addition. But I'd walk by and they'd all just be alone. And I'd be like, oh, and they'd sometimes like interact from afar, and I'm like, I'm not getting close, but I'm gonna say hi from a distance because I don't let social interaction is scary. Yeah, there was a lot of times that they were just like they were going crazy doing their thing, even though no one was there, but yeah, it was a cool addition. It definitely did seem like a almost a last minute thing just with like the font it had, like the sign. It was like,
Oh,
"Oh, okay."
I fully
Um
buy into that being last minute, mainly because of what the signage looked like.
Uh-huh.
the signage was not great. But I hope they do like a more expanded version of this in the future and maybe just use the Lombards area again and just move it to there instead of making that uh Fanta where no one would go over there
Mm.
anymore because it was Fanta.
To be honest, I think let's have both of those as kind of experiences like that, in their own kind of separate ways. I think
Hmm.
that'd be great.
No, I
But
agree.
to talk about the HHN bar outside of the experience you got with Scare Actors, that's a huge letdown. Like, you got rid of food, made it a bar only. You got rid of taps. Your drink selection dwindled. Like, how?
Oh, I didn't realize that they didn't have
They had
taps.
no taps. I mean, obviously, it was still like the quote unquote full bar that they have,
Eh,
but
whatever.
like, did not have a large selection, did not have taps. It's like, but you're only here to be a bar. You have like 8 registers, but like, it was never busy because you didn't have what people want.
I did not realize that. I was praising them for their ops being so fast because I would just go get like whatever mixed thing I
Hmm.
wanted. So I was not paying attention to anything else.
Yeah, typically, you'd go there, try to get a beer, or I literally see it happen, and then people would be like, to Transformers we go.
Ooh,
So,
well.
very weird choice to like literally remove the food option and then also not scale up your alcohol option.
All right. So, do we have anything else to talk about with the HHN bar specifically, or should we move on to the other theme bar?
No, yeah, that's all I got.
So yeah, I mean, let's all go to the Cary Drive-In because there was the snack bar this year. They had it in the Animal Actors location, and it was all themed to Slaughter Cinema, which was really cool. And they had food and drinks. But what did we think of the drink side of things?
I like
Um,
that drink. I've already said it.
yeah, and I think I had a chance to talk about it on the show. I had the drink, and it was, from what other people said, clearly a very poorly made version of it. So I did not have a good experience with it, but it seemed most people did like
Please go to our TikTok because that
it.
or Instagram, whatever, because that video is phenomenal. It's one of the I was there filming it. It was I
It's
tried so hard not to laugh, but
and
I
I was
did
not hamming it
anyways.
up at all. That was my true reaction to that drink.
It was beautiful. And then I
Oh,
chugged it later because I was like, "Oh, why not?"
yeah, I passed that off. Yeah, I thought it was really cool. It was super well themed around a property that people were excited to have at the event. Um, Otherwise, it was just kind of a standard, like, again, quote unquote, full bar that they put out, which we always love to see back at the event. So, yeah, no complaints about it overall.
Yeah, it was nice to see theming at a bar that I now expect to be there.
Hmm. And not for this bar specifically, but in general, kind of having several of these type of bars around the park, it definitely brings the lines down overall, which is
Yeah.
very nice because we've had years past where you can wait in line for just fucking ever just to get a couple drinks.
Last year, I feel like even then we had our little Fanta secret Coke building
Hmm.
bar, but like you would still wait in line for like 30 minutes sometimes for a hand poured drink.
Oh
This
yeah,
year,
oh
no.
yeah,
I feel like also what was it just called the Fanta bar, the Lombards bar this year?
yeah, yeah. It was.
That one never had a fucking line.
Oh, it was always dead. It was always dead.
And you didn't have David Pumpkins harassing you this year. It was lovely.
No,
It
I
was
miss
appreciated.
him.
No, I'm kidding. I did. I liked watching him harass other people.
No, because
That
I
was
was
my
the one
fun.
being harassed.
It only happened like twice.
Yeah, that's true.
Imagine you walk into the Fanta bar like, "Ooh, no one's here. Here we go." And you go to get a drink. All of a sudden, behind the bar, it's David S. Pump going like, "How's it hanging?" And you're like, "Oh."
The only reason I purchased 0 screamers this year is because I knew any box I opened, his face was just gonna look at me. So I got
Yeah,
my Eddie
yeah, that happened.
by luck.
Oh, we
Uh,
And
forgot to really talk about the Screamers at merch.
no, I
You
did it
know,
on purpose.
I mean, they were screamers. I always like that they have them. I always feel like they include a very random thing, but yeah, it is what it is. I don't mind it.
I got
Yeah.
David Pumpkins. I'm happy. I'm content.
I have them
Mm.
all, like everyone ever. So I'm always gonna do that as long as they have them because I'm a hoarding nerd.
You have Edgar Allan Crow, even though that's not what the character is called, but they just named him that.
He is now.
I think Murdy was like, "That's yeah, I guess that's his
He's like,
name."
sure, if we'll go with that. Yeah, whatever, bro.
At least he didn't do a Batilda Patricia.
And that is true. He just didn't give us a name before.
The name was Crow.
Yeah, that was a crow. What about the other one? Crow.
All right, crows. Do we have anything else to say about the alcohol?
I think we have to step outside the park and go to the
Oh,
most important alcohol location.
Yes.
Alcohol location. That's what they're called now. Um, and
I
head
didn't
over.
even realize that that was wrong. I was like, yeah, alcohol
Yeah, of
location.
course. Yeah, that's what I call them on the
Hey
TV.
guys, let's go to the nearest alcohol location.
You guys want
Hey,
to
fellow
go
kids.
down to the alcohol location, have a couple beers?
That's normal.
Of course, talking about Dead Coconut Club, which this year featured Vamp 89 and Blumhouse. I don't know why it wouldn't come out. I just didn't want to say Blumhouse.
That's fair. That is
Which,
my
to be fair,
reaction.
I liked its use in this, so I should have had no trouble. Anyways, I'm just gonna say it right now because I know how we all feel about it. Is this the best Dead Coconut Club they've had?
Yes.
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 I'd never even cared that much about them before, basically because I couldn't drink. But I'd walk in and be like, "Oh, these are fun. This is a cool thing." I walked into this one. I'm like, "Oh, this is gonna be where I start most of my nights now."
Hmm.
Like just automatically that bottom floor. The top floor is good too, but like that bottom floor encapsulates my like first 2 years of going to HHN with the vamp side of things from HHN 28, also just like the aesthetics of 29 all shoved into that bottom floor in a glorious way. Like it was amazing. The actors were great. There were actors walking around. It was immersive. They were like looking at you, ready to suck your blood. They could talk sometimes. The costumes were great. They did a little dance show. You felt like you were in an immersive environment. It was more immersive than most of the zones this year. It was fantastic. 10 out of 10. If future Dead Coconut Clubs, I hope they're as good as this. I don't know if they will because this is an aesthetic and a vibe that really works with me. But goddamn, this was one of the best things of the entire event, and it wasn't even in the park.
I don't know how much I have to add after that. You basically said everything I have to say. I think basically saying that is, to me, just aesthetically wise, that is HHN 29 shoved into a bar. I'm sorry, alcohol location. Uh, and like we all long for that theme and that vibe. So getting it that well done, impressive. The only thing I'll add, they had the best cocktails of the event.
Hmm.
Yep.
Their specialty cocktails, there were like four of them that were better than any four, five, six maybe. They were better than any of the specialty cocktails in the park.
Yeah,
Easily.
agreed. They were great. My only complaint is that it took me until closing night to actually see the vampire performers. I was just not, I don't
Oh,
know what it was. I could not catch them, but
wow.
I did see them. It was great.
Well, as long as you got to see him at the end.
Yeah. But
Because also, that is a very nice touch that they have.
yeah, it was just nice also to just walking into City Walk, you would just hear the music and it would set the vibe because that
Hmm.
loop was, it just brought me back to like my happy place at 29. So it just felt nice to be around. So I would sit in that smoking section. Sometimes I wouldn't even get a drink there because it would be too crowded. I would go get something at Fat Tuesdays, come back and sit right next to it or sit on the couches outside
Hmm.
and just enjoy the atmosphere.
Yeah, I've never spent so much time just out on that second floor balcony on
Yeah,
Dead
also a
Coconut Club
smoking section.
just to take in the music. Like, sometimes it was really busy inside. Go in,
Yep.
grab a drink, just go sit on the fucking balcony. It was great.
And also, like, even if you weren't there to drink, because sometimes people bring families and some drink and some don't, they were like video games you could play, like
Hmm.
that were completely on. I think there was like Galaga and stuff you could, and Pac-Man and stuff that you could just play freely, which was an incredible touch. Um, I mean, if you went upstairs, there was a bunch of Blumhouse props and photo ops you could take pictures of. You technically did not have to drink in here to have a good time, which is awesome. Like they advertise it as this is for everyone. Like obviously it's a bar, but everyone's invited, and it showed because it feels like everyone could have a good time in there, whether you were of drinking age or you wanted to drink or not.
I like how you said that. You don't technically have to drink to enjoy it.
You don't.
Where's the technicality between drinking and not drinking? Where's the line? I
Exactly.
sniffed the drink. I didn't drink it.
They also had mocktails because that's something that they've done in the
They did.
last like
They
couple of
did.
years is Dead
Hmm.
Coconut has had mocktails and they had a pretty good list there.
Hmm.
So
And that does
we
bring me
don't have
back to actually the event as a whole. Again, they've expanded their mocktail selection, and I think we talked about this in the opening weekend review. But I think that is a huge win for everybody. Whether you
yeah.
are someone who does not drink, or you just don't feel like having an alcoholic beverage, even if you normally do, just having those options is a phenomenal step forward for the event.
Yeah,
Oh,
that.
I have. Oh, sorry.
Oh
Um,
no, yeah, keep going.
it has to do with non-alcoholic drinks, but it's silly. The freestyle cup this year was really fucking cute too.
It was
That
good.
Yes,
blue color.
It was
Oh,
absolutely.
good. It was good.
love it.
Oh, that was great. But speaking of mocktails, that Ghostbusters mocktail they had at that booth, like I feel like that was very popular. I've seen a lot of people like rave about that one. I even tried them. Like that was pretty damn good for a mocktail.
Hmm.
Like I forgot about that item, but I really did enjoy that one.
I
Yeah,
never got to try
I
it.
never tried it either.
Had like marshmallow on the top.
Was it like blue?
Yeah,
Oh, okay. I never had it, but I saw people getting it whenever I would get my s'more.
Yeah, I definitely saw it around. I just never tried it myself.
it was cool, pun intended.
So, ignoring that joke, that terrible joke,
Uh-huh.
uh, before we move on from the Dead Coconut Club, which we all just said is the best Dead Coconut Club ever, any last thoughts before we get into the meat and potatoes of this HHN 33 wrap up review?
I don't want to leave the Dead Coconut Club.
Yeah, I know. Same. It it was one of
Yeah.
my favorite parts of the year, easily.
Yeah. I just want I just want 33 to be over with.
I I
I
my
want to stop talking about it already.
I will say my big concern, did they set the bar too high for Dead Coconut Club? Can they match
Maybe.
this year after year? Or is it going to be like the tribute store where we're like, we
Oh.
expect more?
Oh,
Because
that's why
I feel like we didn't. Go ahead.
the holiday one that's coming up is just gonna suck. I hope everybody is prepared for that.
Oh no, I have different expectations for the different seasons. Don't worry, I'm mentally prepared for that.
Okay, good, because I'm not.
I'm mentally prepared. I'm good. I'm ready.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know.
All right.
I
So with
don't
that, unfortunately, let's go back into the park. Leave Dead Coconut Club.
No.
Unfortunately, let's go into the park.
I mean, some nights it was like that. I was like, do we? I mean, I could just chill here a little bit longer. It's fine. Let's head into the park, and we're going to review every house, every scare zone, and we're going to do it with the fun little way of taking a stroll around the park. Of course, starting in everyone's favorite scare zone, Duality of Fear.
Boo.
Can you even call it a scare zone?
I
Like
mean,
that is just you're over glorifying it.
I can only call it that because it says that on the non-existent park map.
So we don't even have a park map to go off of. So there, it's not a scare zone. There we go.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of the joke of the year, but it's not even a joke. It's legit. Like it's not a real scare zone. I'm sorry. It had the same effort and quality as a chainsaw horde, which I like the chainsaw hordes in general, but not when it's literally just replacing the entrance scare zone.
Yeah. You can't put two pieces of fabric on the trusses and call it a scare zone. That's not set dressing.
No. And I mean, like, was it cool when you did get sinister and surreal? Sort of. It was a nice moment. But when they weren't out there, it was just a chainsaw horde, and that's it.
Yeah.
That's
I
it.
I stand by what I said earlier, where I wish it wouldn't have been the minions. We could have kept Sinister and Surreal, and you could have made it Chainsaw Punks.
Hmm.
Same masks from Hollywood, and then it would have made sense with the marketing, would have made sense with the merch right in the store right there, and you still would have had the icons.
Yeah.
I I just I also remember, I think it was on our initial review episode, the meat flap outfits for Sinister's minions only got worse over the 2.5 month run or whatever the fuck. They got like weirdly warped and like saggy, and I'm sorry, it was not doing anybody a favor. So the costuming was bad, the set dressing was bad. I understand they probably gave them like $5 to work with.
It feels like it. It feels like it.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, the set piece that they worked around was something that's going to exist, whether that scare zone's there or not.
Right.
So,
No,
yeah.
this could not have been intended. This definitely was not a like did not seem like a creative choice. I'm sure the people in chart, like, who create the event and all that, did not want this to exist. Um, but it's just probably a reality of just budgets and things and stuff that's out of everyone's control. It's really, really unfortunate. This is my least favorite scare zone I've ever experienced because it's not one. It's cannot be called a scare zone, but because it is, it's like at the bottom. It's a terrible way to start your day at HHN. I don't like being overtly negative, but it is. It's an awful way to start the
Mhm.
day with barely any theming. Like, especially if they weren't there, if Sinister and Surreal were not greeting you, what a weird way to start the night. Like, I'm sure normal guests see chainsaws and they go, "Ooh," but no, that I did not like this at all. This was a very bad choice.
And I think we've kind of already given Duality of Fear more than enough time. So let's just take a right and head over into Hollywood, where we're going to come into Demon Queens.
Scare zone of
Anyone?
the year.
Yeah, it did win Scare Zone of the Year, which kind of shocked a lot of people. Where I'd like to remind you, it's not for us. Those awards
Nope.
aren't for us. They're not for the fans, not for the guests. They're for the scare actors and Universal internally. So, um, yeah, we don't really need to talk shit about who wins it. Just pointing that out.
Mhm.
Yep.
But any big thoughts on Demon Queens?
I think that this zone in the beginning, it was not gonna hit anybody really hard and fast just based on the description. So I think it was something that you had to kind of sit with most Hollywood zones, I feel like this is the case. You have to sit, you have to watch, you have to kind of absorb it. I think that the actors in this zone took what they were given and, like, ran with it. And I think that that's a big reason why they also might have won Zone of the Year, is
Hmm.
they kind of took what they were given and made it into something else in the way that, like, the Graveyard Cast did before, in a different scale, obviously, that is, like, an all-time zone, but, like, the Torture Fair, they were given a home run. Demon Queens was not given a home run, and I think that they made it throughout the run into something so much more than what they were given.
Fully agree. Fully agree. I think where this will be for me on my rankings, it would have been at least a spot lower had it not been for the cast just absolutely killing it and taking it over and doing their thing. So, yeah, absolutely agree.
I'm gonna be honest, I didn't spend a lot of time in the zone really at all. The only time I experienced it was like, "Oh yeah, I should probably walk through Hollywood because of the zone there." It was okay. The cast was giving it their all, and they were always, getting in your face, and that was really cool. It's not something I'm really gonna remember because it just feels almost like an extension of Zodiac and the vibes. Even though it's different, it just sort of feels like a spiritual successor to it in a way. Um, but I mean, it was okay. I like when Surreal did their show. That was really cool. Um, but I only saw it like twice. I don't think I ever saw it again. It was fine. It was a zone.
Hmm. I do think when the show moments happened, that's obviously when this zone was able to shine. I do think to the way it was built out that when that was not happening, you were way too reliant on scare actor interactions, like way too reliant because
Yeah.
there wasn't much there otherwise. So I did think those like portal props that were out looked cool. That's about it. And also, have we talked about the length of this zone yet? Like, why did
Why did
they
they cut it?
cut like a third of this zone's
Yeah.
length off?
With,
I
like,
just,
actual stanchions too, like
yeah, and also that was like I understand you kind of want to like almost funnel to make it an entranceway, and I think it could add to the scares, but like fully like blocking it and making this narrow pathway to walk through, and what you've already built as a more narrow space in general. Interesting choice, to say the least.
It felt like, and I don't know if this is the intention, but it felt like we don't have enough money to like make it a full length, so we're just gonna close it in a little bit. Like we're just gonna cut it. It I didn't love that. I get what they were trying to do. It just did not work for me. But it made it very easy to avoid the scare zone. If you were just trying to get to a place, you just be like, "Up, sidewalk,
Hmm.
you're gone." But no, I did not really love that aspect.
So I think we can keep walking on. This time heading towards Central Park. Still no houses yet. We're going to stop in another scare zone, that being Swamp of the Undead, which, when it was being built, I think probably had the most hype just from what people were seeing. Not necessarily the concept, but like what you could see. It was like, holy shit, they're fleshing this out like crazy. There's so much detail. Looks beautiful. Do you guys think that held up once the event actually started?
If we're talking about the detail and like sets as its own aspect, like that's the only aspect we're talking about, no. I think it was too dark to really see any of it. The lighting I don't think was very good. I mean I knew it was there. There were some props you can see, but I feel like the amount of props that they shoved in there were not really shown at all, just mostly because of the lighting when the actual zone was running. At least like during, during the nighttime. During the daytime it was cool. But
Hmm.
yeah, once it got dark out, I barely noticed any of the props that were sitting there.
Yeah, and this zone also, for me, suffers from, and people might get mad at me for this. It was too similar to Jungle, not character design wise, and not what it was, but it's like swamp jungle. It's just green vegetation. Like insert zombie here, insert
Hmm.
creature here. So for me, it just became something. It wasn't like a I got to go walk through swamp. I actually avoided it most nights because of how wet it was with the misters going off.
It was really wet.
It was just so humid, and, like, on, like, the nights that, like, we had the camera and stuff and I would bring it, I just did not want to deal with wet on wet and wiping the lens off and having to deal with all of that. So I would go the other way, or I would just leave and just be like, "Oh, yeah, I completely forgot about that zone." So it sucks, but I just think that they need to kind of switch up the formula for Central Park
Have
and
we
do something
ever
else.
have we ever considered a zone moist before? Because if we haven't, I think this can be the first one.
I think that, we need to write that down for the Schmitties in a couple
It's
weeks.
the
It's a special award.
Moist Zone Award.
I don't think we have, because like, I don't think we've ever had misters in a zone before.
not like that.
No.
Not like that.
It was like, honestly, those scare actors are built different in Swamp this year.
Oh, they
They were
must
just
have.
wet.
Oh, just damp at all times.
Ooh, how bad do you think that break room smelled?
I don't want to know.
Ugh.
Actually, I do want to know. Someone tell me.
I
Yeah,
was
I think I have the same issues with it as you guys. Actually, like the same exact ones. Jonathan, the lighting was. I think it had moments where it worked. Like if you look at like the airboat, that looked beautiful in the lighting they set it in. However, when you're
mhm.
looking across the zone as a whole, it was just dark and you couldn't take in all the fun details they built. And I think it also kind of hindered the scare actors as well. And I think the fog, well, clearly they tried to make it more low lying. Didn't work. There were still just times you were walking through pure fog, hoping you don't bash into someone else. And then also, Jess, yeah, I think it is kind of too similar aesthetically to what we had just last year. I think that's fine if there's a gap, but in back to back years, having something that looks so similar, even if in the day they didn't necessarily look the same, at night they look kind of close. So, and at the end of the day, they were just such standard zombies in how they had them act. Like, so you need a lot more to work with. The zombies can't be the pure standout, they have to be in the fun. And unfortunately, I feel like it was just very fine. Very fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I did have good actor interactions. Like I did feel like they were trying to go for scares. There were some good scares in here.
Of course.
Some cool props. Like I think like the possum was kind of fun. So like I did enjoy the actor interactions in this zone, and it's a reason I wanted to keep going back into it. The actors honestly saved it. But yeah, like in terms of actual design of everything, I don't think it actually ended up working out, unfortunately.
I think, to be fair, we can say that about basically everything that is maybe not that great, is that the scare actors are almost always kind of carrying it to like, wow, this could have been a lot worse if it wasn't for you guys. I'll say that.
That's true.
And yeah, that was the case here again.
Yeah.
There was one point, I didn't see it, but my friend told me they walked out, they were like I was like, "Why are they in swamp so long?" And then they came out and they're like, "So, One of the zombies took my little Stay Puff shoulder plush. I forgot that like the magnetic Stay Puffs and the magnetic little boos, those were kind
Mm,
of cool.
mhm.
For merch items, but they take them off, and one of the zombies started like trying to eat it, and she was like, "No, don't eat it." And then the Stay Puff like fought back, and the zombie's like, "Ah," and then put it back,
Oh,
put it back on her. Like, okay, I wish I saw that because that's
That's
kind of
fun.
cool.
That's fun. That's a
that's
lot of fun.
adorable.
Uh,
All right, so how about we keep moving on then, and we're gonna hit our first house with museum deadly exhibits, which I know is everyone's favorite house. So we don't have to tell everyone. I know. Uh, what are some thoughts you had on this house?
Um, I have no thoughts about this
No thoughts.
house.
All right.
This is the only house I did with Duff all season.
Oh yeah, that's right. It
hey,
is.
museum!
It is.
Woo!
The only house. And Nick from Fear and Bear. And Jamie. I think Jamie was there. It was Nick's birthday. I do remember that. We did go in a museum together. I don't know. I just feel like even with my expectations where they were not like knowing it wasn't natural history, I knew this was folklore. I was the one like screaming from the rooftops, you guys are thinking it's the wrong thing. It still just kind of never hit. It was a house. I would go through it when the wait times were low enough. It wasn't bad, it wasn't great. For me, it had a lot of things that just didn't work, but it also had like these really amazing rooms like the Viking room. Like I don't know how we get the desk is alive room. Like that gag never worked for me, the desk living and moving, but then we get the Viking room in the same house. And I think that that is the best way I can put like how my feelings are about museum.
Hmm.
Really great, not so great. It was just like a roller coaster, just and then we saw the bloater costumes again from Last of Us. And for me, that
Yeah,
was really hard to look at it and not see bloater.
Oh,
Because I spent
it
like,
was very hard not to see Floater.
yeah, especially when you walk through with someone who was in one of those costumes and he could tell you which one each costume was. That was really funny. And that took me immediately out. But that's like a personal thing. This house
I,
is fine.
I felt bad those bloaters. I'm gonna call them bloaters. They couldn't
They're
really do
bloaters.
anything. They were
No,
like put in such tight spaces. When the beauty of that bloater costume was that they could really get in your face and like sometimes charge at you. And here they were just put in such tight spaces, like they can't really do anything. They're kind of just, they kind of walk up to you a little bit. That's kind of it. They're kind of stuck in the scares they can do.
they're
Hmm.
sidestepping the whole time.
Yeah, but like you know, my thoughts on this house are weird because honestly, 3/4 into the season, like walking through it over and over again, I'm like, this does not work. They tried something and it did not hit. Just the way the story was. I mean, the story was told fine. Just like the way some of the scenes were laid out, the way that honestly the sets did not look great most of the time. They weren't super detailed. The fact that many people pointed out that the placards of the various exhibits and whatever they have little like this is what this exhibit's about whatever were nonsense gibberish because they didn't want people to look at it. It's like, but why wouldn't you want people to like come on, like it's a come on, that's kind of a cop out. They usually in HN houses have tons of detail that you can spend hours looking at, and that's why you do the unmasking tours. I don't understand why a lot of those had like nothing. I know you went on the unmasking tour, Duff. Did they
Hmm.
have like nothing on them?
Only some of them. And I mean, to be honest, I don't think it's an issue because it's definitely like ones that like people would not have had a chance to read at all, and
Mhm.
it looked like it was writing like as you're going through the house, and like something you would never have a chance. Like it was like small print as like it looked like museum placards. Like so, I don't have an issue with that one because like literally it would not affect any single person's run through that house.
That makes me feel better then, because I was assuming everything because I didn't even,
No,
like
there's stuff that did have words on it, but most of those like placards that again, like you would have never been able to read even if they put stuff on it. Like you would have had no shot.
Okay, that's good then. That does make me feel better.
And
Um,
it wasn't gibberish. It was actually like blurred out. So it was like stuff that was blurred,
okay,
which I think kind of
interesting.
made the effect of it looking more like just actual things that you're looking at from a distance. So I thought that was
That
actually kind of clever that they blurred it rather than just pure just nonsense.
Okay, well, that I mean, that's good. I like that actually. That makes me feel a lot better about the house. But my main feelings about it were that by the last 2 weeks, I think, last 2 weeks, I decided to go in the house at a different time because I was like, hey, we'll do it near closing because why not? And I got the best run out of fucking nowhere. I was like jumping from like left to right. There were tons of scares that were incredibly effective. That little bush, like the camouflage bush, came like charging at me, and I almost fell into a wall. Um, and I felt so sad because like, where has this energy been the entire season? I have never experienced a run like this, like ever before. And I went through this house quite a few times. And then I started going at that time like every night. And I'm like, yep, there we go. It's hitting. There we go. I just hit the magic sweet spot. And it ended up like higher in my rankings than I expected, honestly, because of those experiences where I'm like, now when the house is hitting on all cylinders, there we go. It's one of the scariest houses I've experienced of the season. So when we get to the rankings, it's going to be an interesting spot where it landed. But those couple of runs, I think, finally put it above some houses that I was kind of like about the whole season that never really evolved. But Museum did. It took the last 2 weeks to, but it did. So prop to those scare actors because they absolutely wrecked me. I will remember those runs very fondly.
Well, I'm glad to hear it because I am someone who has this in higher regard than most, I'd say. Before the season, I said this is the most boomer bust. Like it's going to be the greatest thing ever, or it's going to miss and be terrible, and that's not what it was at all. It very much was in the middle. So, yeah, I predicted that wrong. I think it was fun. I think the effects that were used were good. I think the story and concept was a good time. I do think kind of design and scale were a letdown. Um, and that's kind of where it missed the most from me. Uh, Not every room was very good either. Like there were some rooms that were just kind of completely boring. But overall, I think it told a good enough story, and there was enough fun in it that it was just it was a solid enough house. Nothing great, but it wasn't bad either.
Hmm.
But yeah, I don't know how much else to say about it because it's such like a middling house to me that my opinions one way or another don't go too far. So with that, if you don't mind, we could just kind of move on to the next house where I think there's probably a lot more opinions because it is Slaughter Cinema 2. Jonathan, I don't know if you want to kick this one off. I feel like you could have fun with it.
Sure. So this is an interesting one, right? Because Slaughter Cinema from HHN 28 is my favorite original that I've experienced. I don't know if anything else will beat it just based on nostalgia. Just like, hey, first year, favorite original. It's gonna be hard to beat that. And I had a feeling that Slaughter Cinema 2 wasn't gonna hit that level, but I was like, it's still the formula is so good on its own. How could you mess this up? They found a couple of ways to mess it up. I still like it. It's still high on my list. But they did find some key ways that I was just so flabbergasted why they made choices they did the way they did. Um, the transition hallways were way too long, way too
Mm-hmm.
long.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they lasted forever, and I feel like took away a lot of the space in the house. I don't know the floor plan, but I'm sure that was like a good chunk of like, oh, that's a lot of room. That's hallway. Um, Almost not every movie, but a good chunk of movies, you'd enter the exact same way. You'd enter the movie, there'd be a little window with a little projected shadow thing happening. Then you turn the corner and there's the house. And so many of the rooms would feel very samey, or the start of it would feel very samey because of this. And it's like that almost feels like a transition. So why did we even need the transition room? There was a lot of just felt like wasted space here. I still had a good time. Mardi Gras Murders, fantastic. If there's any movie I want to see brought in the future, it's that one. The Heavy Metal Hell, very short, but what was there was great. The Hatchet and Chains was good. I didn't love the shark one, but mainly because I've seen that puppet done before. Um, more like better at knots. But like there there were a lot of good movies here. I just think there are some interesting choices that make it not really hold a candle to the original. It's still good. It's okay. I liked it, but it did not do what I thought it was gonna do for me, like on a hype level.
Yeah, I do think it's still a really good house, and it has the essence of Slaughter Cinema and executes that well. But it's definitely not the original. I think there's a few. I don't want to say missteps, but things that maybe we would have liked it a bit more if we're different. For you, I think you talk about like the transition halls were a little long. I also think you could take out a movie or two and kind of expand the rooms a bit, because a few of these rooms really just felt like you're in a closet. Like it's
Mhm.
you walk in and you're immediately out. That's it. That was that movie. Done. Night of the Undead Clowns being a great example of that. Night, is that what it's called? Sure.
Yeah.
Sounds right. Yeah, I think there's some great standouts. Hatchet and Chains. A had a bit more space. Happens to be one of the best. Who would have thought? Zyborgs, Heavy Metal Hell 3D. Although I will say that 3D edition just ruined your depth perception if you put on 3D glasses. It looked cool, but yeah, you just couldn't see where you're going for the most part. Um, I think yeah, there's so many fun movies in this, but I think we could have got so much more if one or two of those could have been fleshed out a bit.
That's kind of my only issue, honestly, with the house is that I think if we would have cut 1 or 2 movies out, it would have been better. I did not have that many issues with it. I actually think that it was one of the stronger houses this year.
Hmm.
Um, it was never gonna be better than the original. It's kind of honestly my opinion on Beetlejuice. It was never gonna be better than the first one. Hardly are these sequel houses ever better, and Slaughter Cinema was such an important original house that I just it was never going to be, I'm sorry. But I was able to, like, approach this one, look at it from in a different lens, this is its little sister or something, and we don't want it to have to look up to its bigger sister, I guess. So I took it for that, and I really liked it. I thought that we got a good variety, but I do think if we would have cut out, like, maybe not Blood and Chum because I really like that room, but,
Hmm.
I do agree it was kind of the least effective, Jonathan, because 'cause we've seen that before. We've
Mhm.
seen it a million times. We saw it in the first Slaughter Cinema in a better way with Midnight, Snack. So,
Yep.
I get that, but I just think that it was fun, and in a year where maybe the event was sour for some people, I'll get there later, this was a really high point for me and my friends, so I really did like this
Hmm.
house. I thought Mummy Strippers, like, in its own, needs to be its own house, like, the fact that we had 2 different casts, we had different genders represented up there, it was just great. I
Well,
loved it.
you answered the question I was about to ask, and so Jonathan, just say
Uh,
it. Just save time. We don't need to discuss it further. But which one of these movies should be a standalone house?
Mardi Gras Murders, without a doubt for me.
Mhm.
For me, it's Hatchet and Chains. I would say.
Oh, yeah. Those are
That'd
my
be
top
good
3,
too.
so there we go. That's perfect.
Hey, there
Hatchet
we
and Chain,
go.
Hatchet and Chain was great, but that the first half of it was not necessary. First half of that room.
Mhm.
I don't know. I liked it. I liked it.
Mm,
How it led into it. That was fun.
okay, I'll take it. Why was there so much puke this year, by the way?
So
There was
much.
so much puke.
Speaking of Mardi Gras murder,
So much puke.
nothing like Hollywood.
Oh, and that one was so gross. The first time you experienced it, like, oh,
Personally victimized by that. I feel like everybody was personally
oh
victimized
yeah.
by that scare actor.
But I loved it. It such they were so good in the role. So good in that role. But let's move on. We have two brand new sprung tents to visit. And the first one we're going to go to is Universal Monsters Eternal Bloodlines, which for me was easily the most disappointing house of the year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It, I think for most of it, the positives I would say the set design is there. The story is a very good story if they could tell it to you fully. Otherwise, there's a lot of interesting choices made, and a lot of it kind of makes you wonder why they did this, like why this story was the one told, because it didn't feel like they really fleshed it out to the point like why does this even come into your head? Why are these characters here? Why did you put them together? Because there's no point I'm understanding why this was made at all. Um, I'll start by saying I don't mind what a lot of people didn't like with Saskia being killed. Didn't bother me at all. I think a shocking moment like that and introducing a character who you immediately murder is great. That's fun. I think you take those chances. Doesn't bother me at all. Um, However, I think the way it happened was honestly a slap in the face to us. You have the main character get murdered, and we don't even see it happen. Like it sort of happens in a shadow, kind of happens in a shadow, and then suddenly, oh, there's her head. She dead. And then I know Jonathan's really going to agree with this one because you said it. We said it to each other a lot, and that's how Bride was relegated to just doing nothing but screaming.
Mm-hmm.
Like we had told this great story just a few years ago and kind of the evolution of Bride as a character, and now we just relegated Bride all the way back to I just sit here and scream. Like didn't we want Bride to be this strong character, and like they ripped that away.
Yep. And she was
um
strong in Hollywood,
yeah, that's true. That's true. Even though
not here.
even if I still didn't love everything about the usage, yeah, yeah, it was a completely different character, which I liked more. And not that I like the house more, but like the character more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So regardless of some aspects being things I really enjoyed, I think the blunders leave it a lot lower for me.
Yeah, I mean, you alluded to it. I've already said my extensive thoughts on this house on previous podcasts. I don't really need to get too much into it. If you want to hear me do a full rant, just listen to I think 2 episodes ago when Mike and I went into all the houses because all my thoughts have stayed exactly the same. Just like this house has stayed exactly the same. I haven't seen anything evolve. I haven't had any runs that were like, oh, this was a great run. Every run has been almost exactly the same, like robotic almost, because it feels like the actors, the way they're placed and the things they have to do, there's not much improv that can be done. It's just whatever's in that house, that's it, kind of. Um, but yeah, my main complaint has always been Bride. I don't like the way they used her. It felt like they didn't even know Bride of Frankenstein Lives was a house that existed. It as a sequel to my favorite monsters house, it was no, you don't do that to this character. That felt so wrong, so awful to Bride. And I'm just gonna pretend this house isn't canon in my head for the future. Because while it's not like a awful house, we're not talking about Chucky levels or Hellblock levels or something like that. It is definitely like one of the most disappointing houses I've ever experienced because of the story choices that they made.
I'm not defending any choices that they made for this house, but I will say, as a woman, I think both of you are not considering the fact that Bride might just be traumatized in this story. Because that's how I read it as. And I'm not defending any choice in this house. But that's the choice I'm choosing to look at it as, is she brought him back to life in the last house just to watch his literal heart get ripped out again in front of her in this one. So I took that as the rest of the house, she's in shock. She doesn't know what the fuck's going on. And then she watched the only person who tried to help her die too, in Saskia. So I'm not trying to belittle Bride with this story. So I'm going to take it as that. That's just what I'm saying for you two.
Yeah, I get that take,
Because
but
I don't think that
then
it was just her being screaming the entire time. I do think that that was part of it.
then I then I just say I don't like that as a choice, a creative choice.
No,
Because
I'm not
Yeah,
defending it.
that is literally a third of the house where she is just traumatized rather than
Yeah,
doing anything else. Which fine in a movie or something.
right.
In a 4 minute to 5 minute house experience, I don't know that really plays well.
I
4
don't
minutes is generous.
I kind of like the Hollywood approach of just forgetting Frankenstein exists until the end.
Right.
Like, I honestly did not like that scene. I did not like how it was done. I hate that Frankenstein was
Mhm.
regulated to a mannequin with a death that kind of looked just not good for a character like obviously it's not his house, 100%, but, like, it just felt like after everything we did in the past house, like, oh, we had this whole big gigantic scene of, like, "Here we go." The death was just, like, little hand popping out of the chest and going back
Yeah.
in, and I was like, "Alright, well, okay." Just I did not love that choice. I get they wanted some motivation. I just honestly, I would have rather just not had it because I think it kinda hurt the house.
Oh, I agree. I think that implementing any part of Frankenstein in this story was kind of stupid. It should have just
Mhm.
been about Bride and
Mhm.
not even, it should have been about Saskia. Um, but that's just my take on like why Bride is just she's just in shock because that's the only way I would accept it going through this house personally. Because
That's
I would be in
fair.
shock if I brought my husband back and watched him die again, you know? Um, and I want to say that that's maybe where they were going. I think this house was too narrative. I think that they tried again. They gave us this really great story in this podcast. This has happened years before. And then the house gets here and it just, here is the monsters. And I wish that we would have just done female monster mash this year instead of that. I would have it rather have been they're not directly connected. Here's Aksunamun's, tomb. Here's Bride's castle in ruins after the last house, and here's the she wolf in the woods. Like I wish it would have just been that with Saskia kind of maybe going through them,
Mhm.
but they just kind of hurt all the characters, in my opinion. And that's not knocking the creative team on this because they tried something new. They tried, an all-female team, and maybe these are people that this was their first house chance or this was their first time doing something on this scale. You gotta try to become the Michaelos of the world. You have to be given something. And that's also not belittling this house either. It just something had to happen, and it sucks that it was the monsters house that fizzled
Mhm.
this year, and it was the female monsters.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think at the end of the day, unfortunately for me, like it just comes down to it being just kind of a miss. They
Yeah.
missed.
Yeah.
There
They
wasn't
tried.
anything like fully wrong in the way it was built. It was just overall missed the mark for myself and a lot of people.
Almost everyone from what I saw. That was
Yeah.
not like a it was general that everyone kind of felt that way,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
it sucks.
Do we think with Epic Universe coming out next year, and also we haven't we'll talk about it later, but Monsters coming to Vegas next year as well. I think it's next year. Do we think Universal wants to do another Monsters house to sort of confuse general audiences about three monsters things happening at Universal experiences happening in three different parts of of the world or whatever? Like, do we think we get another one or next year they're like, we're taking a break?
I will say it being in different locations probably doesn't matter. I don't think they're worried about confusing people because 99.99999% of anyone who steps foot in an HHN is only going to that single HHN.
That's true.
So that's not really a concern. I would say more just, is it time to take a break? Or like I think with Epic, I think is more of maybe a good reason to look at why they might not. Maybe I don't know. I will say we've already had the rumor come out. Like officially, a rumor has come out that it won't return next year. But I don't know. It's almost tough to imagine the event without it at this point, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, but also it would feel weird without a house. But what if they were in like a lagoon show? If the lagoon show comes back instead, and it was all Universal Monster centered
Hey, I would take
instead,
it. I would
like
take that.
that's where they are at the event next year.
Creature leads the way. He's like, it's my turn.
Yeah.
It's Lagoon, it works.
Let's do it. But before we do that, let's take a step next door and talk about Goblin's Feast, which I think that's a fan favorite this year for sure, right?
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
The fandom, general public, it seems that this is something that everyone kind of was like, hell yeah, good surprise. Or I expected it, it's great. One of the two.
This was a good house. I really enjoyed it. It was fun. Um, I mean, The sets are really cool. The story was trying to tell was really fun. The character interactions absolutely made this house, because this house, more than almost all the others, it felt like the actors can kind of be like, so we're gonna put you in a room and you kind of can just do whatever the fuck you want. Like, yeah, just just you follow the general story, but you can do whatever. And that really showed. There was a lot of improvisation. Sometimes the actors like hitting the little dinner bell. Sometimes they were like dancing with you. Sometimes, like they did a little thing, like they tricked you. Like one time, one of the actors like pointed down for me to like look at my shoes or whatever, and I'm like, I'm gonna do it, whatever. And I look down, I look up, and he's like, like it was so fun. The atmosphere, everything, I loved it. It was also scary sometimes, not every run, but if you got a great run with those pinballs at the end, holy shit, you were running out of that house by the end there. So very good house, very very scary sometimes, great interactions. I do think it was a tad short though. And I don't know if we're using those tents to the best of their ability yet. I feel like there might have been a lot of not wasted space, but just space that it was unused right now. I also just built the tents like a couple months before the event started. I feel like there's more use in those that we're going to see in the future.
Yeah, I would agree that it felt a tad short, maybe. Nothing crazy. I feel like we've had other houses that have been much more, uh, or like short is a problem. I wouldn't say it's a problem for this house at all. I think it still gets where it needs to go with what you see. Um, but I think just going back to what the houses in general, it's one of those houses you can fully describe as fun, and it didn't sacrifice gore or scares for that at all. Like it still had every element you would want out of a house while having that fun factor. The triggers from the scare actors, very memorable and fun. Scare actor interactions, designs, the setting that it puts you in. It felt very like just fantasy, obviously, with what it's goblins, of course. So much of it just worked really well. And even though it's not something that I typically lean towards, or it's not made for me, I found myself really enjoying this house, and especially throughout the season more and more. It had some of the best repeatability of any of the houses of the season. um, so yeah, I was very impressed with it, and I wouldn't mind seeing them take more swings in this direction moving forward.
I should have gone first because I don't have a lot of positives to say about this house.
That's fine.
But I feel like I went into this season expecting to not love this house. I I will stand on a soapbox or I will stand on the hill, whatever. This house was really fucking short. It was not kind of short. It was not a little short. This house was really short. Monsters was too, but this one was even shorter, it felt like. And I couldn't justify waiting in a line or walking all the way back to the tents for two houses that I didn't really love and that I felt like weren't worth it. So these two are my like least run out of all of them for sure. Well, besides some of the IPs, but we'll get to that later. Um, but not just how short it was, it didn't hit the way that it hit for other people. This felt like almost like Hill House again for me, or like Chupacabra. Like I'm watching everyone around me eat it up like with a spoon, and I'm walking through going, "What's wrong with me?" Like they're trying to scare me. I'm jumping. I'm going but I'm not giggling. I'm not like teeheeing. I'm not having fun with them. And I don't love fantasy. I've talked about it in nauseum at this point. But it never hit for me. But scenically, it was beautiful. Like, I can't knock it. The sets were great. I didn't love some of the character designs, but I think I said that going in as well. They looked kind of goofy from the previews we had seen. And for me, it wasn't goofy, fun, positive. It was, why does he look like Dobby? Like it was almost like a copyright infringement for some of them. And then
Mhm.
like the costuming with the mask was not working for me. It was presenting as human. It wasn't giving me goblin.
Hmm.
And that was, I guess, my issue with a lot of this house. But then you got through the scariest fucking part with the like statue scare, and it was all the big motherfuckers. That whole like section of the house, fantastic, chef's kiss. They can stay. That was completely immersive for me. The rest of it, I was just like, okay. And then the little gay boy on the way out, I was like, bye.
Oh, one of my favorite characters of the year, by the way, right there.
Love him. I don't know his name, but we would call him the little gay boy at the end. And just but I will say I have a funny story with this one because the whole season I kept saying this house is short, this house is short, and everybody's arguing me and I'm like, "No, even look at our walkthrough videos. The two new tents, like they are shorter. The videos are just shorter. The raw footage is shorter." And everybody's like, "No." These lovely listeners ended up in front of us during Stay and Scream. And we went through monsters with them and then we jumped in goblins. And I didn't say anything about the houses. They had avoided spoilers. And I wish I remember their names, but uh one of them turned around and goes, "That house was really short, or am I crazy?" And I'm like, "Oh my god, justification. Thank you so much. I could kiss you right now." And then we talked about how short goblins was for like 10 more minutes. So whoever you were, if you're listening now, thank you because you made me feel validated.
I
I
will
think
say,
a lot of
oh, go ahead, Jonathan.
I think a lot of it too was the pacing, right? Because I feel like once you went into the forest, like the ancestor forest or whatever, there was like that whole section with the log or whatever you walk through where there was
Mm,
like nothing. Like there was a goblin hand, there was the giant hand once it started working, but it was really like kind of a whole stretch of nothing in terms of scare actors until you got to that little hut again. And even that area was so like spaced out. It just felt like you walked through that very quickly.
mhm.
Which definitely hurt the pacing a bit.
Yeah, there were just kind of big gaps without actors, I guess, that really hurt it for me in the end.
Mhm.
I think that's fair. And again, like you said, we kind of expected that to be your take, and even we thought I was going to have a similar take at the end of the season, regardless. So,
Yeah.
uh,
Although I expected you to like it a little more.
yeah, yeah, more. But I think I ended up liking it a lot more than I thought I would. Still,
Well, talking about something that no, I don't know if that I can apply that sentence to this.
no,
This
yeah,
is
go ahead,
Halloween.
squeeze it in. Yeah, go ahead.
Say
Let
it.
let's go to Halloween Nightmare Fuel Nocturnal Circus. The show for this year, only one show. Unfortunately, no Lagoon show yet. Hopefully next year. Crossing our fingers. But yeah, what do we? I mean, how do we feel about this version of Nightmare Fuel?
Um, so I will say I think I consider it my favorite. I don't know if it's my favorite because of the content or if it's my favorite because we finally got a different version of Nightmare Fuel. Um, at the end of the day, it's really good. Very talented people, has a huge fan base. It's not what I'm seeking out at Halloween Horror Nights. Um, I think we need a another show to go along with this. It clearly has its place. It's not what I want. That's all. I can get a viewing or two a season and be completely content with that.
Um, I'm so sorry. But for like the second or third year in a row, I didn't watch it. Oh no, I watched it last year. I did not watch it this year.
What
So
was the
I'm
because
back to my
I know you did it last year. What was the reasoning to like not watch it? It just like you didn't want to, or just like
um
busy?
I mean, I've alluded to being sour a couple of times about this season, but this year was just not great for me overall. Just a lot of my friends had different tickets from each other, so seeing the normal people you're with were hard. I was in standby, so when I was there, my priority was trying to get through these houses I wasn't able to get through.
Mhm.
So, I did not really have time to just go do other things. I barely spent time in the zones. Like, I would go do a couple houses until they got, like, unbearable, the wait times, and then I would go home because 'cause I'm a teacher. Like, I physically can't stay out past a certain time or stay up because 'cause I'm responsible for tiny little humans,
Mhm.
like, their safety. So, I couldn't justify it anymore, like, staying out until midnight every night, and then I wasn't my best at work. So, it sucked, but I ended up where I ended up because I didn't have the money when Frequent Fear with Express dropped. So, that's my fault. But, it was hard to get stuff done this year. So that's really the zones and the show kind of suffered because of it for me.
No, that makes sense, and that is an important thing to talk about for this year. Maybe we'll save that till the end, but I think their whole ticketing rollout like was honestly probably a big subtle reason why a lot like the majority of the community was like this year was not hitting. I have a strange
Mhm.
suspicion that was a big reason why.
Yeah, I
Yep.
was gonna say I don't think it's a subtle reason. I think there's a ton of people who didn't get the pass they were expecting to get, and when you become accustomed to one thing and suddenly that we'll call it a privilege is gone,
Mhm.
the event doesn't feel the same.
Yeah, and it is a privilege, and I don't wanna sound like a brat, like, I'm not complaining, I'm not blaming Universal. I'm just it is unfortunate, and I know how I like to do the event is not how I was able to this year,
And
and
it
because of that, I didn't get to see my friends as much as I used to, so it was hard.
and it was a clear money move because those express lines were still long. Like there were still like, I'd say about the same as last year. They just wanted to sell more single day. Like that was definitely their goal there. And to make you because you make more money selling the single day than you do the frequent fear. And like I get from a money perspective why you do that, but I think it's just kind of it's shitty. It's really shitty that limited sold out quote unquote express they did. That fucked up a lot of people this year. And I really hope they don't continue that trend because that's kind of really that's just fucked up. It's really sucks for a lot of people.
Yeah, and even as someone
Yeah.
who did get it, I had the issue of I have a lot of friends who didn't, who normally would. So, while I had it, and I was very happy and lucky to have it, um, it still hindered my enjoyment of the event because suddenly a lot of friends I'd normally hang out with were A, on a didn't have Express, and B, spending a lot less time at the event in general. So,
Yep. That's the other thing, I was barely there, and that was just because, like, I didn't have the luxury of just hanging out and doing whatever I wanted.
hmm
So I went home, and I ate my free food. I enjoyed my free stuff. Like,
yep.
that's just how it is. But
Anyways,
that's why.
how no, I'm happy we actually got to that conversation because I was kind of wondering where we're gonna fit that in. And it's like, okay, Halloween Nightmare Fuel, we did it. Um, But yeah, Halloween Nightmare Fuel for me, it's like exactly what Duff said. It's probably my favorite one because it was different. Did not start out with a bed. It did start off with toot, 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 like I was kind of expecting. A little different song, but I'm like, hey, I called it. But yeah, it's Halloween Nightmare Fuel. It has tricks with fire and dancers and some, acrobatics and it will never be my thing. And I watched it once and I'm like, I'm good. I did it and I never need to see it again. And I didn't. So
I will say,
yeah.
to point out one aspect I really did like, is that the Dreamer does not win this time, which is
Oh,
fun. The
really?
Yeah.
Dreamer fails their task and relives the same moment over and over again.
It's Groundhog Day with Nightmare Fuel.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
I always suspect that it didn't happen because people would have said it like on the final show and they would have been like, oh, they
No,
succeeded.
no,
It's like,
no one wants to
no,
get out of here. Stop. Actually, a lot of people probably wanted that, but who cares?
that's
I
true.
wouldn't have
I
been
don't.
there to see it anyways.
We would have heard it, or I wouldn't have heard it because I wasn't at the park, but somebody would have heard it
Yeah, it's
on
true.
closing night.
So let's head over to uh, probably similar reactions from us all. Enter the Blumhouse.
Boo.
I mean, I will say the only thing is about Enter the Blumhouse is it was not disappointing at all. It is exactly what I expected it to be, like to a T.
Yep.
And like I said, scare actors will probably be great and put their all into it and make me still be able to have some fun in it at times, and that's what happened. But overall, the scare zone itself, bleh,
Yeah.
bleh, bleh, no.
Just meh. Whatever. Very pretty to watch from the smoking section across the lagoon.
I like the color. I like the
It's
lights.
very pretty. The actors killed it. I don't understand why we had them on those stages though like that. I wish that we would have had some Megan in the Street like
Yeah,
rotate through somehow.
yeah. Man, I hate that aspect of it. It's just such the universal. I'm tossing an IP in here, and that's it. No character. This is the IP. Have fun.
No, you can tell this was completely forced on people. Like it just feels like a zone that I don't like saying, it, but it feels like, we got to do Blumhouse. Here we go. We're just gonna put this up. Here's some Blumhouse logos. Like there wasn't a lot of really much here. There weren't really many props. It was all just the same stage. The lighting was okay, I guess, but there wasn't really much to see here. And unfortunately, you were forced to go through here every single night if you decided to do major suites because you were dumped right off into Blumhouse. And I'm just like, fuck. It like took all the happiness of suites. You're exiting like, oh, I'm having such a good time. And then it's like you get your face to face with the Blumhouse logo, like, damn it. Um, it's it's corporate tie-in force zone. I don't like it. Very poor. The actors were great. Like I've seen so many videos of the Megans and the Grabbers, and like they were all doing the best of their ability. None of this is on them, obviously. Just where they were put, the actual design and everything was never gonna make it a success for them.
Hmm.
And it's unfortunate.
And I will say, after last year, Shipyard having success kind of alleviating the bottleneck issues, they came right back. The stages and the truss really shoved people back into one little corridor. And once the season got busy in like October, uh, I tried to avoid that place at all costs because it was a miserable experience to walk through. I don't know how the scare actors tried to do anything at that point.
No, yeah, it was horrendous walking through. I think I said once that I liked this zone better than Crypt TV because at least I can walk through it, but that ended up not being the case. So I'm like, I don't even know. It's a coin toss which one I liked worse. The same, at least Crypt TV had like sets, and there was clearly like some references to the move to the show or whatever the YouTube series in it, and there was some detail. This just felt like no one wanted to do this. Like, it just here's Blumhouse, so this might be worse than that. I don't know.
Hmm.
Yeah, the Dead Coconut Club section was better in terms of
Somehow,
sets.
somehow.
Can we go
Jess,
to a good thing now?
anything to add or?
Oh, yeah.
No, I'm good. I said my piece. It was pretty from the smoking section.
Yeah, listen, I don't need another comment than that. That works.
It's
Yep.
But yeah,
perfect.
Jonathan, take us to the better thing in this location.
Yay, the better thing. Major Sweets Candy Factory. I eat my fucking words about Fast and Furious. This house was like one of the best houses of the event. Um, Holy shit. This was phenomenal. From the Q experience, playing the music from the Scare Zone. They did not have to do that, but they did. Thank God. That was so cool. Already got my I love HN31, and that already got like those memories flowing of that zone. I'm like, oh my God, I missed it. But then just the facade was really good, really immersive. The story was told so well. There were so many interactive moments with the cast. Goblins was one of those houses where you can have interactive moments. This one was too. Um, oh my goodness, all the triggers, where you get to like sort of spray the other guests or yourself with water if you don't know what it was. Phenomenal. There was one trigger in particular on like a stage that the actor could just like play with and interact with, like, oh, don't press it yet, don't press it yet now, and then they hit the other guests. Like, phenomenal. All the major sweets, taffies, mistreats, they're all fantastic. The music was fun and great. The comedy worked. The gore was there. It's probably the most immersive house of the event for me personally because it was immersive every single place you looked. Even if you looked up, you were in that environment. I could go on and on and on about this house. This was fucking phenomenal. They did it. They made Fast and Furious work. Not only work, this house is fucking great. So Major Sweets Candy Factory, 10 out of 10, loved it. Great job.
Yeah, I mean, I think it something that I kind of was knocking the concept and how it could work, especially in a tighter space. But yeah, I'm eating crow on this one. I think it worked phenomenally well. Um, Kind of going back to points of goblins and just how much fun this was. Well, again, not sacrificing gore and scares. Um, this, I think, was a more immersive setting, though. Well, I don't think the set pieces themselves were necessarily better than what you would have seen in Goblins. I do think I was more immersed in Sweets than I was in Goblins. I thought the usage of the main characters across the house was done very well. Um, and like we talked about before, if we could have just fucking got a Sweet Scare Zone outside, man. Oh,
That would have been
oh,
perfect.
But yeah, no, I am very happily surprised by how much I enjoyed this house, and am finally happy to get a truly good house in this location.
Honestly, that part, the location finally getting a redemption is, like, one of the best parts, plus we got a good house out of it, but
Hmm.
no, I love this house, without spoiling where it is in my, like, final ranking. It was one of my most run houses, mainly because I don't know what happened. There would be times where you could just, like, walk right in the middle of the night, and there would be no wait, and then you would walk in, and there would be a 3-hour fucking line for standby sometimes, so, but I really loved it. I loved all the little rats that were hidden in this, house, and one of them was a freaking cat. Um, I really loved it. I think it had a charm to it that, we haven't had in houses, like, almost I guess, like, an old style HHN house feel without really knowing what this felt like because I started going in 2017, but just based on what I've seen from past houses. So I really loved it. I'm glad that we got just really fun in a house again. It didn't take itself too seriously.
Yeah, I don't know how much more we can add to that. We just really fucking like the house, so
Yeah.
we'll
Great
move
job.
on.
Fantastic.
And I'm very happy because I get to move on to something else I really like a lot, and that's going to be Torture Fair.
Woo!
Yeah, it was. I talked about it so much before about how excited I was for the Scare Zone, even though again it's kind of based on something that I'm not naturally drawn to. But it was everything I wanted it to be. Um, Almost everything I wanted it to be. But at the end of the day, I think they absolutely knocked it out of the park. I thought the scare actors, as fully expected, grew into their roles and really created special characters. The interactions you got to have with, especially like the king and queen on the stage, was so much fun. The multitude of different actions, like the kills they did, rather than just kind of one repeated segment happening on stage, which has kind of been a curse that we've been bestowed upon in the past several years on that specific stage. Um, it just did so much right, and it created such a fun setting. Um, it's yeah. I, I I would say I won't give it away, but I think you guys know where I have it ranked.
Yeah, because that's probably exactly where I have it ranked.
Yeah.
But,
Probably mine too.
um, for me, like, growing up as a Ren Fair, like, teenager, this was just really fun because it was everything you see at a Ren Fest, but sick and twisted, and that's always gonna be my vibe. My personal favorite, back to rats, the rat eating the intestines,
Mm,
like, scare actor. Just some of the shit we got in this zone was just really fucked up. And yeah, there were real things that happened back then, but ugh, I loved it. I love that it was like a modern Ren Fest that, like, turned twisted. I don't really care how Sinister affected that. She was just kind of there for me, like I said, because I think that overall this zone was so strong we didn't need her. She was just kind of like a cherry on top.
Hmm. No, I agree with that. It kind of, I don't know. It kind of felt like they made Torture Fair before. Like this was just an idea. Like, oh, let's just throw Sinister in.
yeah, pretty much. But I also
Probably.
think, again, was it necessary? No. But I'll take that addition. Why not?
I I love this zone though. Like I absolutely loved it. I thought it was great. It is the one zone this year I would call like great. It had fantastic stages and character moments. I can remember like some moments like specifically like at the end of the night when it's completely empty and no one was there. I just walking by. I think I was walking out of it. And then one of the people with like the plague mask just charged at me, like full on just like sprinted at me. And I screamed and then they stopped and they moved on. And they kept doing that like throughout the event, just randomly. I just walking through, I'm like, oh fuck this guy. I'm gonna get charged at. It was great. The music really worked well. I loved it a lot. I will say I was talking to my girlfriend about this like a couple days ago. I do think later in the season, and it was definitely just me, that this was the only zone I really wanted to experience. So by the end, I just felt like I got like too much torture fare. I was like, man, I'm seeing this so much that like I'm starting to like it less and less, even if I still like it. It just like I did it too much because nothing I never really wanted to do anything else in terms of zones. So but that's not even a fault on the zone. It's just the way the year was. But yeah, great zone. I really really enjoyed it. They did a great job here.
Now, once again, actually, we got a couple. Moving on to something else that I love, Insidious: The Further. Oh yeah, oh yeah. I, I,
Yeah, so
yeah. I'll wait. Someone else go.
not me. Someone else, please. That someone else go. I'm not.
Okay, I'll start. This house was really fucking scary. Um, so scary that I think we skipped a house. I'm not gonna lie. I thought we were gonna talk about the one Jonathan's highlighting in the outline right now.
We'll flip it. Why not?
No, I know, but I was also
It all
not
works the
prepared. But
same.
I'm just gonna go first. This house, usually throughout the entire run of the event, I can get very neutral to all houses. I can learn where all the scares are, and I can get through without dying. I could not get through Insidious, even on closing night, without just clenching onto somebody, especially through the curtains and especially like the brides areas of the
Mhm.
house. I don't know what those actors had every morning for breakfast and lunch. They were built different. I don't know how y'all did that shit, but you did that shit. And it was fucking scary. I have never, since Scarecrow, been so scared of a house like that consistently over and over again. And it was also just beautiful. Just some of the rooms you would go through, just you're trying to just look at the scenic, and nope, you can't, because the bride is pretty much in your face. There was not a run I went through where the final scene, they were not physically in the pathway and still able to get thousands of people through that house every hour. I've never seen actors not scare forward and still get ops, like going, going, going. Just mwah, they deserve all the accolades this year. I do still think that Scarecrow was scarier, but I think that this is right behind it for scariest house I've ever done.
Mm.
Okay, now I'm gonna sandwich it, so my makes my opinion a little easier to swallow. Um, I like this house. I think it's designed very well for the movies. I don't care about the movies, but I think even with that, the house was designed in a very very good way. You had all of them evenly. It wasn't just red door, Hollywood. They actually it was barely any red door. So they really tried to give everyone their chance to shine. The actors were all phenomenal. They had a lot of energy. But I had a curse this year, just like you've had with Fiesta de Chupacabra, Jess, and other and goblins and a lot of other houses. Um, and we all have these situations. I only got scared in this house my last ever fucking run of it, and I only got like 2 scares. I never could get scared in this house. Like Duff can attest. Like he's been behind me, and we're like, this is the time I'm gonna get scared. And I'm like, nope, it happened in front of me. It happened behind me. No scares every single fucking time. And without scares, I can't really say that I'm going to remember this house really that much. It was good. It had the scenes from the movie, but I don't really care about the movie. I like the atmosphere it provided, but I feel like its main thing is to scare you. And I never really got that at all until my final run, where on that final little hallway, they did actually come out at me, and I was like, "Oh, good, a scare! Thank God, yes." But yeah, without the scares, it's kind of just like it's okay, it's fine, and it's weird because I'm usually very easy to fucking scare. I'm not that I'm not super strong. Like, I will jump. Even in the littlest of things, like things in Ghostbusters, I jumped. Never in Insidious. Well, one time, but basically never the entire event. So it was just a house I got unlucky on, and the odds were not in my favor. So it's just a house that I'm never gonna be able to be like that was one of the greats. But it was okay.
To be fair, as much as I want to talk super nicely about it, it's not one of my all timers. I'll give that away as a hint. And as much as I wanted to talk about this for a long time, I realized we do have to wrap this up sooner rather than later. So I'm going to move through it quicker, as we should moving forward with everything. But yeah, this was the most consistent house of the year for me by far. I think it was very impressive how they took uh, a film series that I think doesn't provide much in the way of story and setting, although it very much does for scares, as we've seen, and really brought it all together. Like they just made one of the scariest houses they've made in a long time, while also building really impressive settings around it. And it's one of the few times I've really gone into any room and just felt dirty and gross and like you really shouldn't be there. And that happened a couple times. I was just really impressed how they designed this house of a property that is very okay, I guess, and made it work so well. Um, and the scare actors absolutely killed it. Just nonstop energy, always, every run. And the work you had to put in, especially in that the red room, bouncing between so many boo holes, super impressive. Yeah, it was a clear one of the top houses for me this year. To not ruin the ranking, I guess.
All right, on to triplets.
Yeah, this is the one I skipped, and maybe I did it on purpose. Who knows? Maybe I don't want to talk about it.
I think you did.
Can I just actually? I know how to make this real quick. I'm gonna give you a spoiler. This is my least favorite house of the year. It wasn't very good. All year I was saying there's not a bad house. This was pretty close to a bad house. Sorry.
Damn. All right.
I didn't feel that strongly about it. I found some really high points in this house. I don't think the overall experience was a high point, but I think that there were some fun parts. I do wish that it would have almost started with the podcast part and not have that like thrown in after the first birthday. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I think that would have kind of fixed some of it. But boy, do I love a rainy facade, and that this one gave us that. But I had a lot of fun. But I love slashers. I love like bad slasher movies, so that's kind of why I think I liked this. But it still is not in my like even top. I think 6 or 7.
I like bad slashers too. It just didn't even give me that. It just gave me bad.
Yeah,
It's
gave me
giving bad.
I'm not
It's
saying
giving
it's
bad.
not. I'm just saying I think I liked it more than other people.
Oh, well, we know some people who like it a lot more than that.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I feel bad talking bad about this
Don't
house.
feel
I
bad.
know.
Don't feel bad.
I know. Two of my friends, one of on our Discord, or one of our moderators, like favorite house like this year,
Oh,
like
yeah.
just
Okay.
over
And
the
an
moon,
all timer, I believe.
all timer. Yep, like one of the all timers. And he's been going quite a few years. So like this house worked with a lot of people, and I'm so happy it did, and fantastic for them. I'm really happy. I found this house, especially doing it more and more often, because I had people who just really loved it. So I just ended up doing it more often, and it never had a wait. It just stopped having a wait like at 1 and 12. There was just no people in the line. Um, I found it boring. It was so boring for a concept that everyone was saying in the podcast, like, hey, we usually do IP slashers, but this time you get to see what creative can really do with an original slasher. I want an IP slasher again, because I thought it was just kind of boring. They had a story concept. It was cool. I don't think it actually worked in the house. And it was short as hell. We're talking about. I think this is the shortest house this year because it shares a soundstage with Insidious, which is probably the longest house this year. But it was incredibly short. It just the minute it starts getting steam, it ends immediately. So yeah, not like terrible, but very probably forgettable for me.
Oh, sorry, that was it. I forgot. All
It's
right.
like you're dragging it out.
So, yeah, I'd prefer not to. Let's move on from that and not drag it out at all and talk about. Oh, this is going to go over well. Ghostbusters Frozen Empire.
Let's go. Fucking love this house.
Did you? I had
So
no idea.
good.
No idea.
This came out of fucking nowhere because I know, like, I know none of us have this like at the bottom. I know that for a fact. Like, this was a house that we were all like, we don't want to fucking see this. please don't bring it to the event. Hype season, it kept like popping up and we're like, no, go away, Ghostbusters. Get out of here. And it kept going like, oh, am I based on 1 and 2? Am I based on Frozen Empire? Like, get the fuck out. But no, this was fantastic. Some of the best sets of the event. It was fun, but I actually think in a good way, not a shitty way. I think the fun and scariness actually balanced out really well. The character designs for the most part were great. I love the scenes they showed. It was really immersive. It had fucking Vigo, which was fantastic. Favorite character. I always had the clap for Vigo. It was a thing I had to do every night. He was so awesome. Just the fact that a Ghostbusters 2 villain was in the house. Like they trapped the fucking like a god in their little containment unit thing. I was like, that's so funny. Yeah, I never had a really terrible run of this house. I had like one bad run, but everything else was great. Um, Even Slimer, who switched, I ended up having a lot of fun with that puppet too, because that puppet was just waving like crazy, and it just made the house. I could go on and on. I know we're on a sort of time crunch here, but fuck, this house was great. This was fantastic, and I eat my words. This certainly proved me wrong. They finally, I think, did a Ghostbusters house right.
And I'm gonna do what you did in Sandwich because I know Jess is more high on this house than me. But I will say I am also still eating crow, not just from before the event, but also after opening weekend. I had it at 10. It's not at 10. I'll tell you that. Like
Woo!
I really came around and enjoyed this house. I started to get the fun. I think I enjoyed that they really were able to still implement scares pretty well into this house in multiple scenes. I think honestly, that a hallway. I don't even know how to describe what it is, but the hallway, uh,
Hmm.
the dark hallway is probably top 3 or even the second best like scare room of this entire year.
Yep.
Like it's up there. It's very up there. Um, and a movie that I thought was okay-ish, and I'm not a huge Ghostbusters fan. It really impressed me, and I'm surprised with how high it was able to finish for me.
Speaking of surprised at how high a house finished for me, we all know how much I don't like Ghostbusters as a franchise. Like, I'm just, it's not my thing. I've talked about it on multiple podcasts before I ever was on this one. Like, I just am not hot on it. But boy, oh boy, did I love this fucking house. This, like, without a question, was my most run house of this year,
Hmm.
which is an insane statement for me. You want to talk about eating crow? I loved this house. I'm not going to give away where it's ranked, but I really loved this house. I had my favorite moment from this year. I got stuck at the end during a cast change, and Janine just kept hitting her trigger with me and my friends, and we were giggling. And it got to the point where we'd be like, oh, really, Janine? And she would turn around, hit the button, and then turn back around. And we were there for like 5 minutes. I don't know what was going on. And it just, that run specifically, I hold in my heart, but also that was just how much fun every run was of this house. They were all having a good time. We were having a good time. The sets were impressive. It gave us everything we were missing from the first house with the ecto, with the firehouse. Like, and I'm with you, Jonathan. I preferred the Slimer update to the puppet. I
Hmm.
thought that the costume just looked terrible. You could see the chicken legs of the actor in their little black tights.
I
I
also agree with
just
that, by the way.
Oh, good. Did anybody else though? I will say we'll talk about this more on the Hollywood episode, and then we can move on from Ghostbusters. Have PTSD from Hollywood's Ghostbusters that every time they saw Slimer would go running because B pointed that out to me and was like, "Do you notice how we all sprint?" And I'm like, "Oh no," because we think we're gonna
We're
get
gonna get
sprayed with water.
sprayed.
I was like, "You are so right." I would run. I would just be like, "Bye, Slimer," because that bitch in Hollywood. I don't know what it is out there. Everything's wet. But yeah,
Everything is wet over there. Yeah.
I loved this Frozen Empire house. I don't need to see Ghostbusters at the event anymore. This was perfect. Thank you. And I can't believe I just said that on this podcast.
Let's go, Bustin'.
Ugh, I feel wrong.
Mm.
Like, let's move on, please. or
Okay,
say more nice things.
that's fine. I don't know how much. Actually, I think you like this one more than me. We'll see. A Quiet Place is our next one.
Mm.
Um, oh,
Shh.
I guess I'll just kick us off.
No.
I do think they translated this about as well as you can to a house. However, I don't think that makes it a great house by any means either. Um, Very too reliant on the puppets, which, to be fair, looked good. I like puppets. I like when they're used well. Way too reliant. Um, it- the scenic was really good. Like it looked really good. It just like it was boring. There wasn't much going on. I really don't have any other problems than that. But that's a big problem to have. Like a really big problem to have. At the very least, I should not be bored. And I was bored on most walkthroughs.
Mhm. Yeah, I guess I'll chime in here because I have very similar opinions to this too. We know that Charles Gray on the Quiet Place podcast was saying like this is an experiment. We'll kind of see how it goes. You know, we'll see. And like they did the movie. They did it well. The aspect of you talking and then there's a scare does not happen, but whatever. Like, you know, like they everything else they did really well. The sets are some of the best of this year. The sets are really good. And that is why it is where it is on my ranking because the settings are phenomenal. And they told the story pretty well. But I think the main problem was choosing to take a quiet place and bringing it to HHN. I don't think that works. I think from the get go, I had a feeling that this property wasn't going to work. And then they brought it. It's like, hey, you did it. You did the property. You did it the best you could ever do this property. But I don't think this property is a haunted house. It works. I just think from the get go, what they had to use was bad. And no matter what they do, no matter how much money and actors and whatever, no matter what they do to this, it was always going to be what we have now, which is not really a haunted house, more like a dark ride sort of attraction with some animatronics. And sometimes there'll be a scare. So, yeah, not terrible. It just was exactly kind of what I was expecting.
It's funny that you say dark ride because my exact like description of this house is that it's not that I didn't like it. It's that it wasn't a HHN Orlando haunted house. It was HHN Orlando does a daytime walkthrough experience of the Quiet Place films.
Mhm.
And that's okay, but that's not what we expect at HHN Orlando. It felt like it was like remember Stranger Things Day? Like when the house was it was open, but you just kind of walked through it and it was a little different. Like it just felt like the family friendly version of a quiet place almost. And that's not again, it's not a negative, but it's not what I go to HHN for. It's not what I want in these houses. It was a cinematic experience. It wasn't a haunted house for me.
Yeah.
So, eh, it's not bad. It's just not great. And unfortunately, that's why it is where it is in my rankings when we get there. And I only got to go through this, I think, 4 times.
It's okay. You
4's enough
didn't
for
need
this
more.
house, I
Yeah, it's
think.
good.
I
You
didn't.
got the gist.
And that's the thing. I would have rather I waited in line for Insidious and then I would go do Ghostbusters.
Hmm.
And that was my move every stay and scream. Because why would I wait for this one?
Very good choice.
There's no reason to. Yeah.
Well, with that, let's move on to the last piece of our walkthrough of HHN 33, Monstros, the Monsters of Latin America. Who wants to kick us off here?
Please me, please.
Okay, sure. You don't have to fight for it. You can have it.
um, well, I loved this house. I know you guys had said earlier in the season you were kind of like whatever on it. Yeah, it's the better version of Hollywood, but for me, like this was a great version of what we had last year in Hollywood, minus the muerte at the end. I will
Oh,
never forgive
oh,
them for what
that's
they did to him
oh,
ever. That takes away a lot of points for me. That's
Mhm.
why like this house is not in my top like of this year, but it is a very solid house, and I think it perfected what we saw last year in Hollywood. So I really enjoyed it. I loved the Tuala Pucci update, the
mhm.
redesign on her. I think it worked a lot better than we saw last year. I liked the village take on the setting. It was very much what I was hoping for, and I think we talked about in the spec season, and then like in the hype season as well. So I think it gave me exactly what I wanted.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, I'm happy you enjoyed it a lot. I will say, I came in saying I really can't wait to see what Orlando does with this, and I left the event saying maybe I just didn't need to see it back to back years. How about that? And yeah, that's basically how I feel about it. I think a lot of what I think about this house does have to do with I saw this house last year in Hollywood, so obviously different version, but many, many, many similarities, of course, while also having a monstrous dose in Hollywood this year. It's a lot of monstrous going on at once. A concept I do enjoy in general, but give me a break. Uh, the good things about this scenic, much better. Uh, Also playing into scenic is how they differentiated the three monsters and making it very clear where you were, who you were dealing with. Great, love that. I like you, good character designs. Although Talawal Pucci's like glove arms always looked a little weird. But outside of that, really enjoyed the redesigns. Um, Outside of that, it didn't feel like they plussed too much from what you got in Hollywood. And like you said, that final La Muerte is kind of unforgivable. Like that's supposed to be the big moment, right? Or like a big moment, and it fell so flat.
Yeah.
Like the first time I walked in, I literally laughed at it.
Oh, same.
Like I'm Jonathan or something. Like Jonathan
Yeah.
laughs at stuff in houses, not me.
I
I
know. It's
laughed. It
crazy.
was so bad.
Mhm.
Um. So yeah, I feel like head to head, it's the better version. However, I feel like I saw a slightly improved version of a house I literally saw last year. So, you know, didn't bring too much joy.
That's fair.
I don't think it was bad by any means, but
Yeah, I'm at a similar thought of you, Duff. Seeing the house affected it a lot, and it kind of makes me wonder. Just like I get, we wanted to show Orlando, like show this concept because it was a really cool concept from Hollywood. But if we're gonna do it almost like it's not beat for beat, but it's very similar. Why even do it? Like I kind of don't want like if they're like, hey, we're gonna bring this from Hollywood to Orlando. I'm like, please don't, because it's gonna be very similar, and I'd rather not. I'd rather like a completely new thing, or if you're gonna do it completely different. We don't need to follow the same formula. Um, it was okay. I thought a lot of the scares were lacking until like the very end of the event. They started getting a little intense. Um, I think Hollywood's was better for me, and I don't. It's probably just because Hollywood's was first. To be quite honest, I just remember having a lot more fun in their version of the house, and in this one, I walked in. I'm just like, oh, okay. Like seeing that facade with where it's like, oh, we're just doing the same shit. All right, okay, it's good. It's good stuff. It's just it's the same. I think a lot of the sets were a little too open for me for like scares to be super effective. I didn't love Elsie Bones really anything. I think Hollywood did pretty much every section with that character better. Um, who was like the main character of their house. I don't know. It's okay. I just I don't want to see Hollywood originals come to Orlando again unless we're really gonna do them
mhm.
differently. Because I feel like this one was a little too close. Where I'm like, yeah, I'm not excited anymore if they're like Hollywood originals coming to Orlando.
Yeah. I mean, listen, Murdy's come up with some cool concepts. However, Orlando comes up with several cool concepts every single year. We don't need to
Mhm.
Hmm.
borrow. We
No, we do
simply
not.
don't. And based off what me and Jonathan said about this, I know there's people screaming right now that Scary Farm, Hallow Scream, Local Haunts, they have the same houses every 5 years, and you got a different version of one, and you're complaining. That's what makes HHN special, baby. That's part of its thing. It gives
Yeah.
us 10 new houses every single year. And that's what kind of puts it there at the top of haunt events for us. That's a piece of the pie. And I'm not giving up my piece of the pie. That's important to me. I
And
have
it's a reason we go to both
expectations.
events.
Exactly.
Like, why go to HHN Hollywood? Like, not saying this happens, but like, if we're going to see almost a carbon copy of things we've seen in Orlando, which kind of happened this year with one of them. But I'd rather things be different, so you have incentives to go to both. You know.
Hmm. Definitely. All right. Well, that does end our walkthrough of HHN 33. But that doesn't mean the episode's over because we have to rank them first. So let's start with scare zones. Before we rank them, quick question. Don't have to go too in depth into it, but was this a good year for scare zones?
No.
No.
No, it wasn't. Okay, I think everyone caught on from what we had to say about them, so we don't need to elaborate. It's okay. Seeing as one of them wasn't a scare zone to any of us. Anyways, who wants to kick us off with their number 5 in their scare zone rankings?
We all have the same number 5.
Yeah.
Let's not
Duality
even
of fear.
play
Yeah, let's go.
duality of fear.
Let's go.
Yep.
Number 4. Who
Alright.
wants to kick us off? Do we all have the same number 4?
Do we all? I think we all have the same number
I
4.
think so.
Okay, Blumhouse.
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 Wait.
Number 3. Who wants to kick us off with number 3?
We're gonna switch. We're gonna change here, I
Okay.
think.
Good.
So I'll just start off. Demon Queens.
Okay, different. Yep, I do have Swamp of the Undead there.
We have the same list stuff.
Yeah, I figured.
Yeah.
Number 2, Jonathan. That means you have,
Swamp of the Undead.
and Jess and I have,
Demon Queen.
and we all have number 1 as Torture
Fair.
Fair. Shocker. Who would have thought?
I
Only
wish I
one.
had the fake Last of Us music to play from the zone right now.
No, right? Anyways, yeah, I will say, Scare Zone quality definitely went down. Sorry,
Yeah.
hate to see it, but at least I got Torture Fair out of it. So, winner,
Even
chicken
last
dinner.
year, we were going like, oh, the scare zones weren't as good as 31. Hopefully they'll improve next year. No, they got worse.
I keep telling myself that every year, and guess what happens every year?
They don't get better.
Yeah.
Get worse.
So now, let's move on to the big boy, the houses, where we should see a lot more differences in our list, I hope. Let's start with number 10. Who wants to kick us off?
I can.
Oh, okay.
So my number 10 is A Quiet Place.
Makes sense?
It never hit.
That's fair. My number 10 is one that actually, I think in the opening weekend review was at like number 6, maybe 7. And now I don't even think is a very good house at all, and that's Triplets of Terror.
Poor triplets.
I don't feel bad for them.
And my number 10 is Eternal Bloodlines.
Oh, all different. I like that. I'll go into my number 9 and kind of piggyback off Jessica's. It's A Quiet Place.
Jonathan, you can't piggyback off that?
I cannot.
Oh,
not
okay.
yet.
Okay. So then my number 9 is Eternal Bloodlines.
Poor monsters.
It's unfortunate, and I really wanted to love it. I really did.
I do feel bad for them, not the
Yeah.
Barmies.
Not the farmies at all, just monsters.
Correct.
My number 9 is actually the Barmies. It's Triplets of Terror.
There it is. All right, well, I'll hop to number 8 then, and it's Monstrous.
Okay. My number 8 is Museum, Deadly Exhibits.
Fair.
And God, these lists are all different. My number
Yeah.
8 is A Quiet Place.
Wow.
There it is. I mean, it's only number 8, so I guess I can't be too shocked, but
The sets are the only thing that put it above triplets.
it did have
like
really
that
good
was
scenic. It did.
That's true.
My number 7, and as maybe poorly as how I talked about it came off, still up to 7 at least, is Eternal Bloodlines.
Wow.
I think the bones were good enough to carry me through.
The
The bones.
So does the tent now have good bones?
Well, no, that's not how that transfer works.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I'm trying to understand the bones.
No. The tent just ate like something that had the bones of something good in it. It's not like its
Oh,
bones.
gotcha. Well, speaking of eating, my number 7 is Goblin's Feast.
Ooh. I'm not surprised. It's just, there aren't many like you.
No,
That's
and
higher than
I
I-
knew that.
higher than I thought it was going to be.
Right.
you,
I mean,
so-
I had to give it its flowers. It's not a bad house. It's just there's always that one I have on my list. You guys know.
Mm-hmm.
That is true.
And my number 7 is Monstrous.
I'll go to my number 6, where I think I'll be lower than you guys, but for me, this is a big deal. I have Ghostbusters.
That's a huge deal.
That's a huge
That-
jump. From 10 to 6. I think it basically swapped with Triplets from opening weekend.
Go Ghostbusters.
And really,
That's
it
great.
could have pushed 5. It's more just a personal thing that kept it at 6 instead of 5.
All right.
Wow. My number 6, I'm not surprised it's this high for me. It's triplets. I don't know why. I can't justify it. I really liked it. And
That's
I'm
fair.
gonna die on that hill. You know, I'm gonna stand with your friends, Jonathan. Okay, I
Hey,
liked it.
Listen, do you know how many things there are that I can't justify why I like it?
There you go.
I get it. I get it.
oh, okay, here we go. Number 6, Insidious the Further.
Wow.
Yeah, I knew it was coming. I was hoping more like 5, but
It was
oh
close.
well. My number 5 is the museum, Deadly Exhibits.
I'm gonna hop right there because that's also my number 5.
Yay.
Wow.
As middling as can be.
Exactly.
Has middling. My number 5 is actually Monstrose.
Okay.
Again,
We
I
all have
loved it.
M's in our number 5.
I loved it. For number 5.
My number 4, and I say this is where it gets interesting. I had 2 through 4 throughout the entire season, flip flop back and forth all over the place. But I think I'm gonna settle with number 4 is Slaughter Cinema 2.
I'm
Okay.
gonna piggyback because my number 4 is also Slaughter Cinema 2.
Ooh.
That is not my number 4. Um,
Way to ruin the fun.
I'm sorry. My number 4 is actually Insidious.
Oh, I'm shocked.
Oh my
I would not have thought
wow.
that.
I know, but it's as much as I loved it, it's a great house. I don't always think that scariest house equals best
Oh,
house.
I fully agree with that.
So I think that a lot of the hype this year was the scare, and as good as the house was, looking at it just in like a lights on point of view, I don't know if it was better than some other houses.
Fair.
That's fair. See,
Fair.
seeing from my perspective of never getting scared.
Yeah, you should have gone with me, Jonathan.
I should have. Like,
I was like, I had people tweeting that it was like a different experience going through with me because I was so scared.
that would have been fun. That would-
Stupid Universal fucking it up.
yeah, but pretty much.
All right. So I'll move on to number 3 then. And surprising me, I was so worried about the contents of it, but it worked, and that's Goblin's Feast. Even if
Duff,
it's a little short.
what the fuck is going on? Because number 3 is also goblins for
Well,
me.
don't worry. I know
Wow.
we don't have the same list, so
No.
we definitely have a discrepancy coming up.
Wow. My number 3 is Major Sweets.
Mm.
Okay.
My number 2, I think this is going to be the big shock. I will say if we recorded this like a week ago, this would be different. But I've sat on this after the event and thought about what is more special to the event and what I will remember more as being the genuinely good house. So at number 2, I have Insidious the Further.
Yes, let's go. I had a feeling you were gonna do that, saying it early on in the episode.
Mm,
I had a feeling.
mm,
My number 2 is sweets.
nice.
My number 2, and this is probably the most shocking thing I'm ever going to say on this podcast, is Ghostbusters.
Holy shit!
All right,
It's
let's end the
awesome.
episode. We peaked. It's over.
Actually, the most shocking thing I'm going to say comes next episode.
Oh no.
No. I don't think so.
Oh,
I think
okay.
I've already said the most shocking thing.
I know what you're referring to.
Yeah.
Yeah, hell yeah.
I think I've already
Let's
said the most
go.
shocking thing when I did our hype list for California. So, Ghostbusters, woo, number 2. You did great.
Woo!
So with Insidious being my number 2, that means surpassing it after literally the entire event, and then a couple weeks. It really was biding its time here. Major Sweets Candy Factory, I think, is
Wow.
the most kind of special to HHN 33 house there was, and just out of the original content it's based off of, how they created it, my number 1 spot.
I love that for you. That's fantastic. See, that's
Thank
why
you.
it took so like a little bit to record. Major Sweets was pulling the strings on
Yeah, that's all it
everything.
was. That's all it was.
That's all it was. Oh god. And my number 1, which I think it was like number 9 on my hype, and I was very against it the whole hype season, is Ghostbusters. Fucking amazing. Ended the season with it. Great house. Loved it.
Expected.
So
I also
fun.
Also ended the season with Ghostbusters, but that's not my number one. Which is shocking. I meant to end the season with this, but I was just too tired on closing night. My number one is Slaughter Cinema 2. I think it was great. Mummy Strippers, I think, had my heart from opening night. So
Deservedly so.
I saw them drop it low and it was over from there.
And
All right.
overall, we just asked this question for Scare Zones really quickly. Was this a good year for houses?
I think so. Pretty good. Not great. Pretty good.
If you would have asked me that opening weekend, I would have said yes, very solid across the board. Now, comparing it to like the average year for houses, I don't know, man. It's a little bit lower for me.
Yeah.
I
I don't
think
think there's any Chuckies,
no,
right? There's
there's
no
no
Chuckies.
absolute.
No.
I don't think there is a legitimately bad house. There is nothing close to an all-timer either. And what I thought was very solid across the board has now become basically everything from 7 to 10 is pretty low for me.
Yeah. I'm only gonna really remember probably my top 3. Everything else is like
Yeah.
okay or forgettable or just sort of just gonna fall off. Top 3 great, strong top 3, but I think most of his houses this year suffered for kind of being the middle of the pack, just kind of being mid when instead of having duds, there were just a lot of across the board for me personally.
Mhm.
Oh, I stand on what I said. It was either like right before the season started or right when the season started. This year felt like 27, and I still think it feels like 27. It had a really scary house, not as good as Scarecrow, but then it also had some really weird mid houses, like the Fallen, Hive. Like I don't know. That's why it feels like 27 to me.
Yeah. And that's fun conversation because I think this off season I'd really like us to do a event ranking episode, like a full
Mm.
thought out one. So we'll see. We'll see. Maybe we'll get there.
That'd be fun.
But this also leads us into a bigger question of where does this year, we'll say, rank for you? How do you feel about this year overall? And I guess we'll stick. Was it good? Was it a good year?
I had fun with the people I was with. I had great experiences. Got to hang out with with people that I really care about, and that always is the best part about HHN. But like as objectively, the year as a whole, probably one of my least favorite. And I'm hoping next year we get more back to formula. And I think they can do it. I just think this year there was a lot of things that just didn't click. And sometimes that happens with HHN. Not everything's going to be a winner.
Ain't that the
Yeah.
truth? I will say my answer to that same question about the zones and houses gives it away that no, I don't think so. Obviously, it's good in the sense that I think HHN is always good and fun. Like HHN level good is just a much higher bar compared to other HHNs. I think this is a lower tier year for me, unfortunately.
Yep, I already talked about the year being kind of sour for me just because I didn't get to see a lot of the people I normally get to hang out with. I went from this is like 3 years consistently always being with Duff and Mary, always, to I think I saw them like 3 times this year
Mm-hmm.
and did like a house with them. And like same like Jonathan, you were always around in the last couple of years too since you've joined the show. So it's like
Mhm.
I never saw Jonathan at all.
No, I don't think. No, I think I saw you in passing with
In
Duff
passing,
once.
yeah.
Yeah.
But never like actually. So it was, yeah, I'm very fortunate that I got to go this year. It is a luxury to get to go. This is not like this is not a need, but it's something I save for and it's something I look forward to every year. But it was very different this year. And I didn't get to do it with the people I'm around all the time. And I
Mhm.
also wasn't there as often because of it. Because I'm not gonna go alone when I have to wait in line for an hour and a half. It's not fun.
No,
I can go
absolutely
alone
not.
when it's an express line, It's different.
Mhm.
So it's just different things this year, and that's okay. But I'm also getting older, so I don't want to wait in these long ass lines and stand by. My body's not built for this no more, guys. I can confirm I am a little bitch. And the older I get, my body hates waiting in that standby line.
I don't blame you. Do
I was
not blame
counting
you.
switchbacks down, guys. Like
Oh,
that's what I was doing in line.
yeah.
But yeah, it's whatever. I'm just ready for 34 now.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I still love the event
Yeah.
passionately. I'm just now ready for the next year. That's all. Like,
Yep.
not every year's
With my
gonna be my
friends.
favorite.
Yes.
Not every year's
Let's
my favorite.
Yeah.
And like in a year where literally I just said the theme, lower tier. Scare zones, lower tier. Houses, mid tier at best. Like, come on, you knew this wasn't gonna be like top tier for me.
I'm hoping Universal makes some changes just all around, particularly with the tickets,
Mhm.
to make next year a better experience for everyone. And I know they've gotten tons of feedback, not only from people like us who record podcasts and talk about it. You know, a lot of podcasts have said similar things, but also on closing night, instead of everyone feeling sad that the event was over, every single post that I saw, because I wasn't there closing night, but I was just scrolling through Twitter, just it's like, every single post was like, man, why did this year suck? And I'm like, what? Usually on closing night, it's like, oh, we're gonna be so sad about all the houses and people, but it's like, no, everyone was like, nah, let's figure out what happened. And I'm like, that is so different from any other year. Like even
Mhm.
years that aren't super high regarded, people aren't like, let's forget about this year. So I'm sure they got feedback about it, and I hope there's some changes.
Yeah. I've never left closing night at 8 o'clock before.
No.
That tells you
The
anything.
the three of us did not close the event down. All three of
Mm.
us. None of
No,
us did it.
Nope.
So yeah, that'll tell you something. But yeah, we're excited to move forward, get into the off season, to see what's coming for HHN 34. So cannot wait. Um, did we have any voicemails or was that it?
I did not check, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm not gonna check now. So if there is one, it will be on the next
It's
episode.
already a 3 hour episode basically. So
Yeah.
see you next week for that. But yeah, so to wrap this up, follow us on social media: Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky, and YouTube at HHN365, or TikTok at HHN365pod. Check out our Discord so you can talk about the event year round. That link will be in the description. Check out our merch at HHN365.com, where you're going to get I'm her sweets, she's my treats. No, other way around. Other way
Whatever.
around. Uh,
They're coming.
and leave us a voicemail at 407-906-4134. If you're already there, we won't ignore you again. Sorry, long episode. Other than that, we will see you in the streets in like a year.
Oof. We'll see you at Epic before we see you in the streets.
Hey, something to look forward to. Let's go.